Please be upstanding for Her Honourable the Mayor and Deputy Mayor.
Good evening. Welcome to the meeting, the Council. My name is Councillor Carol Jewell. I'm Mayor of Wokingham and Chair of this meeting. Before we start the business set out in the agenda, I'd like to go through a few preliminaries. Please note that this meeting is currently being webcast live. There are no fire drills planned this evening. If the fire alarm sounds, please leave the building via the nearest exit and gather at muster point 2, which is located in the car park to the rear of the building. Anyone requiring assistance should remain seated and await the assistance of building support staff. A reminder that councillors do need to stand when speaking in the chamber. When speaking, please speak directly into the microphone. If you turn away from the microphone, the sound will not be picked up for online attendees. Can councillors ensure that your nameplate is clearly displayed in front of you? May I remind everyone that I intend to adhere strictly to the timing set out in the Constitution. The first item is apologies.
Madam Mayor, we have apologies from the following councillors: Councillor Ainsley, Mather, Montgomery, Nagra, Rance, Timlin, and attending online we have Councillor Harding.
Thank you very much. Move on to the minutes of the previous meeting. I'm sure you've all read these. May I sign the minutes of the annual council meeting held on the 22nd of May 2025 as a correct record? I have a show of hands, please. Thank you very much. That's a majority and the minutes are agreed. Thank you. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations? Yes. Rebecca.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to declare an interest in item 21. I am Chair of Local Advisory Board at 9 Mile Ride School, which is part of the SACRE Trust.
Thank you. Stephen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think I have to declare an interest, although it seems rather remote on two grounds. It relates to item 35, statement from council-owned companies. It's remote because I don't for 1 minute imagine we'll get that far on the agenda, and it's remote because I wasn't planning to say anything anyway, but for the record, I need to say that I am Chair and Director of Wokingham Borough Council Holdings Limited.
Thank you for your remote declarations of interest. Greg, you've had your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I declare an interest in items 22 and 35 as I'm employed by Optalis. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? David and then Prue. David.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I need to declare an interest also in item 35 as I'm a non-executive director of Optalis.
Thank you. And Prue.
And I am, like Stephen, a director of the holding company, so I need to declare an interest in item 35, even if we don't get to it.
Thank you very much. We move on to item 17, which is Mayor's announcements. In view of the very long agenda we've got, I'm going to make it short and sweet and not make the usual announcements, but I would like to extend a very warm welcome to Councillor Mike Smith, who was elected as Councillor for Maiden Early and Whitegate on the 5th of June. Mike, we are very pleased to have you back in the council chamber. Item 18 is public question time, for which we have 30 minutes. I'd like to remind executive councillors that responses to questions must be no longer than 2 minutes, and these will be timed. We have one public question. Mr. Humphreys, please will you put your question if you use your microphone
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
in front of you.
We often read reports of fly tipping in the borough and council officers diligently picking through it to find evidence of those responsible. However, the culprit is often staring them in the face, and much like the elephant in the room, is overlooked. A quick glance at the first photograph attached to my question shows a pile of discarded road name signs with the words Wokingham Borough Council and the official crest clearly emblazoned on them, together with various abandoned building materials. This fly tipping is only a few metres from a children's playground and potentially dangerous if kids climb on the debris. This has a negative impact on children who think it's okay to throw rubbish in public places if the council are doing it themselves. I should add that residents have been living in Franklin Drive, the name on the signs, for a couple of years, and the road has signage for a similar period of time. So this is not a temporary store area, and the builders have gone. The nearby suitable alternative natural green space, pictures attached, also has fly tipping, including an abandoned chemical toilet, which appears to be associated with tree planting carried out there a long time ago to meet the council's environmental targets. Why does Wokingham Borough Council condone fly tipping by parties associated with it?
I'll be responding, Peter, and my apologies for not being with you in person. Hope you can all hear me okay. So firstly, thank you for your question and bringing this to our attention. And to be clear, the council does not condone fly tipping in any way, shape or form, and we will always act on any reports of fly tipping to clean up our borough and to seek evidence to support the most appropriate legal action. On this occasion, we've investigated your report and established that the items are on private land owned by a developer. And in accordance with this, we're liaising with them to get the items removed and ensure that the area is kept clean and tidy for the enjoyment of local residents and users of the play area.
Thank you. Peter, do you have a supplementary?
I'm interested to hear that it's private land, because clearly it's open to the public and there's no sign saying it's private. And this is just an example. I've seen this in other places in the borough. I'm glad to hear you're not condoning it, but it does give a bad image of the borough. And since I submitted my question, there's even more rubbish there now. So how long does it take to actually get this cleared?
So in terms of it being private land, my understanding is even if there's public access, there are areas around the borough that are not council-owned land, but I'm afraid I don't know the exact intricacies of this location. Sorry to hear there's been more rubbish. I will follow up with the team and ensure that it can be cleared up as quickly as possible.
Thank you. And thank you for that question. That's the end of the public questions. Peter, you're more than welcome to stay for the remainder of the meeting. But if you want to, please, could you view it from the public gallery? Thank you. Right. Item 19 is the Town and Parish Council question time. And we have one Town and Parish Council question on behalf of Winnersh Parish Council. Jeff Harper, please will you put your question? Jeff, you're muted. Can you unmute yourself? We still can't hear you. I'm sorry. Jeff, I don't know if you can hear us, but we can't hear you, so I think we will need to move on. We have got your question. You will obviously get an answer from the executive member on that. Sorry we haven't been able to take it in person. Can we give an answer to? Sorry. Right, we already have the questions, so could the executive member for Active Travel please give the answer?
Jeff, I hope you can hear me. Thank you for your question. I can confirm that temporary signs were erected at primary locations on Reading Road at the start of the change process, and that since then, as other signs were changed, these have been supplemented by more signs. These are necessary because, especially where street-lit roads are reduced in speed to 30 mile an hour, speed limit repeater signs are not allowed to be used. I do accept that we could have been more proactive in our communications around the date of the change and the change process, and that doing so may have reassured residents about the transition. The comprehensive communications which were issued in the early days of the change seem to have achieved this and been well received, but they were a few days later than ideal. Lessons have been learned from this for any future such changes. Whilst delivering letters to residents and businesses can be a useful way to share information, the scale of these speed limit changes, of which Reading Road, Winnersh was only one, and the number of users of these roads who are merely passing through, makes this an impractical proposition. Finally, I would like to take the opportunity to clarify that speed limits are enforced by the police, not the council, and that the council receives no revenue from speeding fines. Thames Valley Police were fully aware of the changes to limits which were happening, and that it takes some time for all of the signage to be changed. I understand they take a pragmatic approach to enforcement during such a transition. In the unlikely event that a resident has received a fine and feels this is unfair, they can, as ever, appeal the penalty.
Thank you, Adrian. Jeff,
Madam
Mr. Harper,
Chair,
I believe
right.
you're unmuted. Do you have a supplementary?
Yes, thank you. Me and technology don't always get on. I hear what the councillor said about notifying residents. After the introduction of the reduction, I did a brief survey around where I live, and I spoke to 40 people, and of those 40, only 11 had heard about the speed reduction. None of them were aware of it before the introduction of the speed limit. And we believe in Winnersh Parish Council that there are still people who are unaware of those speed limits. I mean, people like me, I've lived here for 44 years, and the speed limit along that road has always been 40. My sat-nav still records 40 along that road. I think that's a sat-nav being out of date. So we do believe, right, that people are still unaware, right, that it's 40 miles an hour, 30 miles an hour. If you look at the speed sign coming into Winnersh from the Showcase roundabout, the 30 limits signs are actually very high up the lamppost above a bus stop sign, and not really in the line of sight of people. So we do believe, right, that the residents of Winnersh certainly need to be made more aware of the speed reduction.
Mr. Harper, is that your question at the end? So I was waiting for the question.
Yes. I mean, it's the same question, really. You know, and you know, according to your executive member, right, the answer is no.
Okay, yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. I think your supplementary question highlighted two issues. One is about whether the speed limit is clear, and the other is about whether people who have previous experience of the road are aware that it has changed. In terms of the speed limit being clear, at the start of the 30 limit in every direction, I believe this is clearly signposted. In terms of people understanding the change, I believe we now have adequate signage along the route, along the new 30-mile-an-hour section, making it clear that a new speed limit is in force. However, if you don't agree, or if individual residents don't agree that the signage is either clear or appropriate, I would encourage them to report that to the council. There are options on the council's website to report an issue with road signs, and we will always look at those if they are received. In terms of your reference to sat-nav companies, the speed limit has been notified, speed limit change has been notified to the appropriate authorities. Unfortunately, we don't control the speed with which sat-nav companies update their data.
Thank you very much. Okay, if we can move on to item 20, which is petitions. Does anyone wish to submit a petition? Right, would you like to present that or summarise that petition and then hand it to one of the officers, please?
Thank you. I'd like to present a petition on behalf of Shinfield residents who would like the council to install pedestrian crossing as part of road safety measures in the Shinfield Meadows development. It's a new estate still being constructed, and many residents feel the council have ignored their requests for action. Woking Labour has supported the petition, so residents can have their voice heard. It's also been supported by Yuan Yang, the Early and Woodley MP, who has been contacted by many concerned residents in the area. To date, the petition has accumulated just under 200 signatures and demonstrates the considerable support among this new community for a new pedestrian crossing on Dearden Way, which will help young families get to nurseries and schools. The road layout here has recently been changed. Residents have called it a racetrack as drivers speed down the road, making it increasingly difficult to cross safely. This has only got worse with the recent changes to the road layout. One parent told me they've been sworn at, had car horns blasted at them, and almost rear-ended more than a dozen times while trying to reverse into their own driveway. Another has said there urgently needs to be action. Speeding has increased significantly. And a third, this is now becoming an increasingly dangerous crossing for school kids, nursery goers, and adults. These families were promised a garden village estate with parks, walks, and a slower pace of life compared to the main roads and motorway that are close by. We have to ensure that's delivered. Of course, the number of signatures does not determine whether or not a crossing can be installed, nor is it a political decision by the executive. Officers must perform their technical assessments of the location and need to be balanced against the needs of other locations and the funding available. But this petition demonstrates the overwhelming level of local support. So I've submitted a formal application, and this petition should be seen as supporting that application. I'll now present it to the Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If you'd like to hand that to, I think Madeline's coming to meet you. Okay. While that's going on, move on to item 21, which is a previous petition we had and debate on that for Embrook School sixth form. I understand that Charles Margetts will be speaking to the petition on behalf of the residents who organised the petition. The residents are Emma Wilkinson, Vicky Warburton and Sarah Thomas. Charles, you have 5 minutes to present the petition on behalf of residents and then a further 3 minutes to speak to the motions set out in the agenda papers. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm presenting this petition on behalf of 2,287 residents. The petition was presented at March Council and, as you said, basically was written by Sarah Thomas, Emma Wilkinson and Vicky Warburton. The petition says, in 2022, WBC requested Embrook School take on additional pupils beyond its then capacity. An agreement was made where Embrook would accommodate these pupils by converting part of the existing sixth form into a dining hall. In return, WBC would provide capital for a new sixth form building scheduled to open in September 2025. Embrook School has upheld its part of the agreement by converting the sixth form building into a dining area. However, WBC has not held up its part of the deal. Despite confirming that they have the budget, there is no commitment to rebuild the sixth form. According to planning permission, construction must commence by March 2026. As a result of WBC going back on the agreement, the sixth form at Embrook is being educated in temporary buildings with no firm commitment. This has a significant impact on their education and experience. Embrook is a successful secondary school in the heart of Wokingham. Clive Jones MP recently commended the school in a speech in Parliament for its 2024 A-level results, which put it in the top 1% in the country. WBC is allowing a lot of house building in Wokingham. It's important we have the schools to support the people who live here. We are parents with children who are very happy and settled at Embrook. We are asking WBC to honour the commitment previously given and commit to a new sixth form at Embrook School. Obviously, that petition was handed in March, and it should be noted that in June of this year, WBC did announce a 240k spend to do enabling work this summer to maintain the planning permission and prepare for the new building. It's my understanding that this work has now started. The executive also later announced they plan to try to bid for more money in February 2026 for the full budget. I'm told that the Trust have been told by WBC that building work will begin in summer 2026 with a view to opening in 2027. This is a 2-year delay to the original date, and it's essential this time frame is met. I first got involved in this because I was approached by residents and the Circle Trust in late 2024 who'd grown very frustrated by a series of warm words but a lack of any kind of progress with this. And at the time, the lack of any firm commitment from the Liberal administration and WBC to deliver this. I'm pleased that the petition seems to have focused minds on delivery. I really hoped when coming here tonight that all councillors would support the motion before you. The motion was written to ensure WBC holds to the promises that have previously been made to the community, to restore faith and trust which has been lost in the community. It requested firm commitments to complete the development and enabling work. It requested that full funding would be announced in February 2026 and would be part of the 2026 MTFP. I note we have an amendment before us tonight, which no doubt we'll get to, where that line is watered down. That, to be honest, is very disappointing. It also requests that WBC publishes its building plan, which show key building dates running through to an opening date of September 2027, so that the community are clear that things are on track and are going to be delivered. If WBC is sincere in the things it says to Wokingham residents, I would have hoped that every councillor in this chamber would be able to support this original motion. Members that should remember that residents watch our actions. Anyone who either amends this motion or supports an amendment that weakens it will show a lack of commitment to honouring the previous promises of these councils. And I'm sure residents will make their judgment on that in good time.
Thank you, Charles. You moved so quickly into your part of it that I didn't ask for a seconder, so sorry, a bit late on that. Have you a seconder, please? Thank you, Moses. Okay. As a seconder, do you wish to speak now or reserve your rights? No, he's done both.
No, Madam Mayor, I actually only read out the first part of the 5-minute speech. So may I present the other one now?
Yes, you may.
My seconder is here. Thank you. So, support for this motion tonight should be straightforward. This promise was made to the community in 2022 that delivery would happen in September 2025. We know the story of planning permission. We know how we've got to this place. The question residents and the Trust asked me when they first came to me in 2024 was how could they put pressure on the council to honour this promise, to get away from what they felt was smoke and mirrors, and I suggested they raise this petition. The petition gained signatures rapidly. The initial response of the administration seemed to be, we're financially committed to Embrook, but it failed to offer any delivery date, basically, for the school. A question from an Embrook pupil in January Council received an answer from Councillor Bray that the Council fully supports the delivery of a sixth form on 2 conditions. 1, the Council will support funding of this in the budget next year. Now, the Council is controlled by the Liberal Democrats who have a majority here, so this is very much their gift to give. It doesn't matter what the rest of us say. For the want of the record, we fully support it. And 2, that a secondary school place analysis carried out by officers will show a need for more places at Embrook. This was hardly the full ringing endorsement of support that the residents wanted. So, residents were not happy with this and presented their petition in March. Happily, the lead member announced in June a spend of $240,000 for enabling work and said at the time, I hope this gives people confidence this is really going to happen. I would have hoped that the lead member and other councillors would vote fully in support of the original motion and show by their actions that local residents can have confidence in what they say. Anyone who basically supports this amendment, to my mind, is weakening that commitment. People may ask why the promises of the council should be doubted. I've explained the story of the promises given in the past which have not been met, and we have to look at the track record of the council in recent years. Bowhunt School, years of delay with promised expansion. The new sixth form was promised in 2023. Liberal Democrat leaflets at the 2023 local elections promised it would open that September. This promise was broken. There was a public apology from then 2 former Lib Dem councillors. A new date was given of September 24. This promise was broken. It now looks like it will open in September 2026, which is very welcome, but is 3 years late. Thankfully, ground has been broken there and things are now moving forwards. Please support the original motion tonight and restore faith with the Embrook community. We promised this building, the whole council, that this would be built and to open in September 2025. Actions speak louder than words. Voting in favour of the original motion tonight is our opportunity to make this firm commitment and basically encourage these parents that they're not being led up the garden path again, and this will be delivered by September 2027. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am complete.
Thank you, Charles. We've done the seconder business, so and go on from there. I've got the seconder. Does any councillor wish to speak to this item? Fu, I think you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to start by saying to the petitioners that I'm sorry that you felt you had to raise this petition, and that despite our best efforts, there are still some of you who may not trust the council to deliver a new sixth form building at the Embrook school, and I think we've just heard Charles encouraging you to take that view. I hope that as time goes on and you see the project progressing, we will be able to persuade you to look on the council more favourably. It is absolutely our intention to go ahead with the new sixth form block.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. I wonder if you could just explain procedure here. Is this an amendment? Is it a speech about the original original motion? I'm just not clear.
At the moment, this is just, I asked for any comments and that's what I've got. I haven't asked for a
Sorry,
second.
but how does it work in the rules of procedure? Could we please get an information, a comment
It's a
from the
speech
monitoring
which will
officer?
culminate in me proposing an amendment. All right, Pauline? That's normal practice.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
Fu, you can carry on, but if there is an amendment, could I ask if you have a seconder, please?
I do.
Get that out there.
I haven't proposed it yet, though,
No.
Madam Mayor.
Okay. I'm just
Yes.
trying to avoid that
Yes.
problem later. Thank you.
I hope I'm going to get injury time for this. It is, may I proceed? Yes.
Question. Yes, Rebecca.
It still isn't clear what's happening. Is Prue now speaking for the amendment? Has the amendment been proposed? No. But that's what you've just said. So you need to be clear about the procedure that's happening.
Okay.
What I just said was that I'm making a speech at the end of which I will propose the amendment.
That's not.
Sorry, I don't think that's the process. Could I please have an adjudication by the monitoring officer, please?
The advice I have is that I asked if anybody wants to speak to the motion. Prue's put her hand up, and she has said at the end of that, what she's saying will be a proposal for, I understand, a proposal for an amendment.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I believe the procedure is, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the procedure is that if you want to make an amendment to a motion, you propose the amendment and then you speak on that. Please, could I just get some clarity?
It has been clarified with me, and I'm not speaking to the amendment at the moment and can't speak to that until the amendment is proposed.
So is this, sorry, just to be clear, are we saying now that you've asked, which you didn't, whether anybody opposes this motion, and then they get to speak, or is this some other, I mean, there shouldn't just be anybody got any comments, that isn't correct?
Right, the advice I have is that it's a petition debate, therefore anybody can speak to it. And I asked if there was anybody to speak to it, and that was taken up. So, people may have, sorry if I answer that, people may have had their hands up, but I've just gone for the first hand that I saw. Stephen.
Madam Mayor, could I through you, ask if the opposition would allow you to chair this meeting and not try to chair it for you?
Well, maybe if we're clear about the procedures and exactly what we're talking about, we wouldn't have this conversation.
I keep explaining the same thing again and again, and I don't know why that isn't understood. So I think we should move on and to go for the discussion, and then if there is an amendment to be proposed, then that will need to be seconded, and we can take it from there.
Thank you. I feel like I'm almost now as far past the full 90 minutes into injury time that it's matching the Lionesses scoring their final goals. So it is absolutely our intention to go ahead with the new sixth form block, as was outlined in the letter of intent that the Council issued in May 2024. And unfortunately, while the motion goes into detail about the origins of the project, it fails to mention the letter of intent, and Charles did not mention it in speaking either. It is that letter which over a year ago laid out that the money is due to be made available in next year's budget. That's what the motion asks for, and we are already working to that timetable. In June, the Executive committed £240,000 ahead of time to do some enabling works which are scheduled to be carried out during the summer holidays. And as Charles acknowledged, those works are happening. The motion asks those works to happen, and they are. The third and final thing the motion asks for is for the Council to communicate what's happening and when. And we have already started on that too by sending out information about the 240,000. Unfortunately, the motion leaves the Circle Trust out of the list of people to be communicated with. As they are responsible for the school, they really do need to be included. As we are already doing everything the motion asks for before we even saw the motion, I hope no one will try to claim that the sixth form build is only going ahead because of the motion. Before we can proceed to voting, both the omission of the letter of intent and the omission of the Circle Trust need rectifying, along with tidying up some wording, removing some repetition, grammatical errors and typos that have crept in as the motion was put together. So I'm proposing an amendment to the motion which does those things. This is on your desks and I hope you will support it so that we can then go on and vote for the motion. So I am now, everybody, proposing an amendment.
Oh, a sigh of relief. Could I just ask for a seconder so that we can... Thank you. Right, yes.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, there has been some confusion. Please can our members now be allowed to speak for the original motion? There was confusion about what was happening at the original procedure. They did put their hands up, and you haven't allowed our members to speak for the original motion.
If you could hold on just a moment, I'll take some advice on that.
I don't think they understand how debates work. This is no different to any other debate. What is the matter with them?
Right, I'm told we've done it all correctly, that the first speaker was the one that's proposed the motion for the amendment. And if we've got the amendment on the table and it has been seconded, that's what we need to debate now. We've gone past that original point. So I've asked for a seconder, which I think is Imogen. Thank you very much. So we now, could I ask, has any councillor wish to speak on the amendment?
Madam Mayor, could you ask Charles if he accepts the amendment? I suspect the answer is no, but...
Yeah. Okay. Charles, I ask you, would you accept the amendment?
I'm afraid Prue is correct. The answer is no.
Thank you very much. Does anybody wish to speak against the amendment? Okay, I'll start with Pauline.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
That's all right.
This school was clearly promised for September 2025 and this promise has been broken. Meanwhile, children at Embrook continue to be educated in inadequate temporary facilities which have a negative impact on their education. It's an individual tragedy if pupils, through poor facilities, are unable to reach their full potential, both for them and for their families and also for the UK as a whole. Embrook is a fantastic school and I'm at loss to know why the council is dragging its feet and keeping its side of the bargain. I can't support this amendment because I don't think we've ever seen the letter of intent. I would like to know if it's in the public domain. If it isn't, would you like to share it with us, Prue, so we can decide whether we actually agree with it or not?
Was that a question? Yes. Right. I've got a list of the speakers here. David Edmonds is the next one.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I rise today in strong support of the original motion and against the amendment because our community has waited far too long for action. Families in Embrook and across Wokingham were promised a new sixth form centre at Embrook School, a promise that remains broken. In 2022, Embrook accepted more pupils, trusting this council to build the sixth form they desperately need. That promise was made by this Liberal Democrat administration, elected in 2022 with a completion target of September 2025. Yet here we are in August 2025, just 1 month away, and what do we have? No building, no builder, just delays and excuses. Planning permission was granted over 2 years ago, in March 2023, but this council has stalled the project, pushing it back and hiding behind vague reviews while children continue to study in cramped, inadequate, temporary facilities. Not only this failure is not accidental, it is the direct responsibility of those charged with children's services. Since 2022, Prue Bray has been the executive lead member for Children's Services, and under her leadership, we have seen no progress. Not only has she failed to deliver the sixth form at Embrook, but she has also failed to achieve the sixth form at Bowhunt, another critical education need. Worse still, she has presided over a lack of support for the struggling school during the Oakbank crisis, when vulnerable young people needed strong leadership and swift action. It is deeply disappointing that someone entrusted with responsibility for children's services has failed so comprehensively across multiple fronts. But let us be clear, the ultimate responsibility lies with the council leader, a university lecturer, a man who's made his career in education. One would expect him to lead with vision and commitment to our children's futures. Instead, under his watch, promises have been broken, deadlines missed, and young people left to suffer in temporary and unsuitable facilities. That is not leadership, that is a betrayal of the very values we should embody. Yes, we've heard about scoping work to avoid the expiry of planning permission in March 2026, but that is little more than window dressing, not the delivery that students, parents and teachers deserve. That is why I strongly back the original motion. We need this council to confirm and commit to clear binding dates. We need them to immediately allocate capital funding so that we can start as soon as possible. We need a transparent timeline. Over 2,200 residents have signed this petition demanding delivery. They deserve more than words. They deserve action. I urge every member to reject this amendment and support the original motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Imogen, a seconder, did you want to speak or do you want to reserve your right?
Yes, I do. Well, I'll reserve my right to the end if that's...
If you put your hand up when you're ready to speak.
Yes, okay.
Moses, I had you down next, and then Alison and Charles and Stephen.
Madam Mayor, my apologies for interrupting. I believe I have a right of reply right at the end.
Yeah, oh yes, yeah.
Madam Mayor, I rise to object to the amended motion, which seeks to deliberately water down a long-standing commitment made by this council to the Embrook School, and more importantly to the affected young people and families of Wokingham Borough. In 2022, the Embrook School agreed to take on additional pupils beyond its planned capacity, responding at the time to an urgent need within the borough. This was done in good faith, with the understanding that the council would fund the construction of a new purpose-built sixth form centre, originally scheduled for completion by September 2025. It is important the promise is honored to reciprocate the goodwill and avoid a breach of trust. The recent approval of £240,000 for project development and enabling works is welcomed. However, this amendment renders it a make-believe and creates future uncertainties that the project will be delivered in full. A modern sixth form building will enhance the learning environment for academic excellence, support student well-being, and allow for a broader curriculum. It is pertinent to reiterate that over 2,000 residents signed the petition, urging the council to fulfill its promise. This is more than just voices about infrastructure. It is about trust and guaranteeing opportunities. Whilst there might be limited funds competing for different priorities, this project must not be sacrificed on the altar of political expedience and personal preferences. Finally, the original motion is about the council delivering on our word, investing in and building a future for our young people. The council must therefore commit to have the capital funding for the project, included within the TFP for future years with sufficient budget provisions and a firm date when the project will be completed and delivered. I therefore urge all members to vote against the amendment to ensure that the Embrook School receives the sixth form facility it needs and deserves. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Alison, I have you next.
Thank you. Today I speak in support of the original motion because our community has been misled, led down, left waiting far too long. The families of Wokingham were given the firm promise of a new sixth form centre at Embrook School. And in 2022, the school welcomed more students, placing their faith in our council, their faith in us. They believed that when the council spoke of opportunity, it meant action, because action was pledged. Taking control in May 22, the new Lib Dem administration assured all of us that the sixth form centre would be opened by September 2025. Well, now it's August. We're weeks from a deadline. What stands where that building should be? There's nothing. There's no walls, there's no workers, no answers, just disappointment for the families. And when planning permission was granted in March 23, time was on our side. The opportunity was within reach. But instead of building a sixth form centre, the council built a fortress of delay, a maze of meetings, a fog of excuses. Meanwhile, the Embrook sixth formers study in temporary spaces. Conservative speakers tonight may sound like a broken record, as we all echo our accusation of Lib Dem broken promises. The parents at Bowhunt were promised a sixth form centre, and when, in May 23, a Conservative candidate warned that the Lib Dems wouldn't deliver on that promise, I, as the election agent then, was sent a letter by the Lib Dem agent, who is in the chamber tonight, demanding that the social media posts were withdrawn and an apology was made because there would be a sixth form open in September 24. I was told it was reprehensible to claim there would be any delay to the planned opening date. I think we all know now that the truth was told by Conservative candidate George Evans, as there is still no sixth form at Bowhunt. Ground was only broken a few weeks ago and it expects to open in September 26. Since May 22, as Councillor Edmonds said, Councillor Prubray has led Children's Services, and under her watch, promises were broken. Futures were stalled. Sixth form provision at Bowhunt, forgotten. Support during the Obank crisis, absent. We've heard talk of enabling work for Embrook, an attempt to preserve planning permission through to 26. But let's be honest, that's paper pushing. It's not progress. Families can't enrol their children in a planning review. Teachers can't inspire students in a construction delay. And to echo my Conservative colleagues, voting for this original motion will mean clear binding dates for funding and construction, immediate capital allocation to begin building this year, not the year after next, and a transparent timeline to return accountability to our residents. Let's show the families of Embrook and Wokingham that when we promise something, we mean it. We owe it to the families. Please support the original motion. And remember, over 2,200 residents signed the petition.
Thank you very much. Stephen, I have you done.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wasn't intending to speak on this item, but bearing in mind some of the comments made, I think it's entirely appropriate that I do. This has been a rather bad-tempered debate, with no respect shown for the Mayor, which I have to say I regard as appalling, and none shown for fellow councillors, which I regard as pretty poor as well. This, to me, is politicking of the worst kind. Would the council commit nearly £250,000 to enabling work for a project that it didn't intend to pursue? That is absolutely ludicrous. One Conservative speaker dismisses this as mere window dressing. Well, that must be the most expensive window dressing I've ever seen. Every effort is being made by Conservative speakers to undermine public confidence in the delivery of this sixth form block. And I have to say, this is an appalling piece of irresponsible politics. I know the Conservative Party is desperate, but this truly takes the biscuit.
Thank you very much. Imogen, a seconder to that amendment. Did you want to speak?
Yes, thank you. And I somewhat echo what Stephen says in that, this is about children, yeah? I think we can all agree that we need to rebuild the facilities of this sixth form for our sixth formers at Embrook School, but there clearly is a need going forward. Children are our future and should be our priority when it comes to using our limited funds. But the way you guys are using this is just appallingly bad because it's politicking on the worst case. Anyhow, we've already committed to spending $240,000 to start the enabling works over this summer, and this is in line with the letter of intent that Prue talked about, the agreed schedule and the existing planning consent. With finances as tight as they are, we really can't afford to waste money on something that may not go ahead. And I hope that it shows we are committed to this project, as Stephen has echoed already. All of this work has been agreed with the Academy Trust, and I fear there seems to be a lot of misleading information being put out there. And like Councillor Bray, I too am sorry that you felt you have so much distrust in what you were hearing that you felt that you needed to bring this petition. But I assure you, everything in line is what has been promised and agreed. I can only hope that this situation heals as we move forward and that everyone can accept that the amendments in this motion, which brings it in line with the legal boundaries and the work that we are already doing for our residents and our children, can be accepted. Thank you.
Thank you. Charles, you have the right to reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted probably with this to bring this back to where this started. I was approached by a group of residents, about 15 of them, and the Circle Trust, because they were concerned that there was no progress with this and nothing was happening. This was not something I sought. They came to me because they felt they were getting absolutely nowhere with the council. Initial responses talked about financial commitment but gave no dates. This is where this has started. This is why this is here. I was involved 4 or 5 years ago with 2 petitions for a sixth form at Bowhunt School, a very hot issue locally at the time. They got about 1,400 signatures each. This got nearly 2,300. This is not something that is just to do with the Conservative group. This is a widespread fear in the community that this promise is being broken. I've heard the leader speak tonight very passionately, basically in fact saying they are very committed to this. I hope that that is correct. The thing, I've also heard Imogen talk about basically politicking. As I said, this came from residents. We reacted to residents and their concerns, and councillors who forget this in this chamber do so at their peril. I wanted to pick up basically just a couple of points on the amendment. I agree with Prue Bray's comments about point 3 on the amendment. What she has said and altered here has strengthened it and made it clearer. And that is agreeable. My big concern about this amendment is line 2. I had written, because I feel very strongly that the community needs to feel faith and trust in this council on this, WBC to guarantee full funding for the new building will be announced in February 2026. This has been changed to honours the terms of the letter of intent, a letter I've never seen, the parents have never seen. Now, it may be that what's in that letter of intent basically contains no demons, but if that is the case, basically I would ask that it's released to the public so they could see that. And if the administration is clearly in favour of restoring trust and faith, it should do that. I'd finally finish by going back to the answer that was given to the Embrook student basically in January. The 2 conditions were mentioned for this funding to take place. 1, that the council will support it. Well, we've heard tonight that it will. And 2, that a secondary school place analysis carried out by officers will show a need for more places at Embrook. I would suggest that basically my fear is that that is what is in the letter of intent and that is what is not being made public. And all the time I have that fear, it causes me to sincerely doubt that this is actually going to move forwards. I truly hope I'm wrong. I'd encourage all members to reject this and vote in line with the original and show the community we are 100% serious about doing this by September 2027.
Thank you very much. I'm aware we're getting very close to the allotted time for this item. So if I could now move to ask for a vote on those in favour of the amendment, please raise your hand. And all those against? Substantive, yeah, okay. Thank you very much, thank you. The amendment is carried, so we now have to vote on the substantive. Could I ask...
Do I not get a right to some 8 now, Madam Mayor?
Sorry, I couldn't hear where that was coming from, sorry. Prue, sorry. We have run out of time, Prue, so if we can go...
But some rather dreadful things have been said about me during that debate, and I did think I might have 2 minutes to reply, but never mind.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. No. That's what I meant. Yeah. No, okay. Okay, thank you. Right, so if we go to vote on the substantive then, all those in favour, please show. Yes. Yes. Okay, thank you very much. Anybody against that substantive, please? And are there any abstentions? Thank you very much, that's carried. We can now move on to the next item, which is item 22, and that's the progress report on the social care future. I'm delighted to... Okay, right. I'm delighted to welcome, when they come into the room, Jay, Callum, Yvonne and Greg to the council meeting for this item. So if we could just wait for them to appear, please. I think we're all here. So I'd like to welcome again Jay, Callum, Yvonne and Greg to the council. We're looking forward to hearing from each of you how you've been getting on since you attended the council meeting last time. For anyone that hasn't met Jay, Callum, Yvonne and Greg, they are residents who draw on adult social care services in Wokingham Borough and who are part of the social care future movement locally. We've got a 15 to 20 minute slot for these presentations, if you'd like to go ahead.
There you go. Hello everyone, my name's Jay. I'm happy to be here today with Yvonne, Callum and Greg. For those who haven't met us before, all four of us have experience of using care support service in the Wokingham Borough. Thank you for inviting us back to share an update since we last spoke at the full council in January 2024. Today we'll talk about the work we have been working on, what's coming next, and how it fits with the 5 key changes of the social care future vision that we all committed to in Wokingham. The 5 key changes are about communities where everyone belongs, living in the place we call home, leading the lives we want to live, more resources, better use, and sharing power as equals. We'll share some real examples of what we have achieved so far and share how you can keep supporting us as we work to make a positive difference in the lives of local residents.
Hello, I'm Callum. There is a lot of updates about travel and transport. This is a link to our key change number 1, communities where everyone belongs. Because better transport helps people get to more places and stay connected, being part of community life. I am really pleased that the bus pass was extended to run all day, every day. This makes it easier for everyone with disabilities to get to jobs and get to work and appointments. This change helped because many people said the old bus pass system was broken and didn't work for people with disabilities, and for me this change means that I can get to work and appointments more easily. I am happy I helped make a video called On the Buses, which people have seen, and we've also had some good talks with the local travel team about the bus network, in the redesign of the bus network within the borough. They want to know what makes it hard for people to get around, including how improved rural bus routes help. Travel ambassadors have been working and hard to share travel and transport information. They've made sure that information is clear and easy to read and understand. They also want to may make travel more accessible for everyone within the borough. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Yvonne. I've taken part in Social Care Futures workshops, one in particular which was focused on basic rights in law for carers and people who draw on support was especially helpful. I've been able to share what I learnt, which has definitely been empowering for people using services. It's good that people are starting to question things now, rather than just accepting what they're offered. I've also attended workshops to develop support for carers in the borough. These sessions were well attended by residents, people working in the sector, and local community organisations that support carers and their families. A huge amount of data was gathered during these workshops, and it is now being used to help services and solve real issues. This work has led to the development of the borough's carers strategy and carers information service. A family carer even co-chairs the strategy's implementation group, helping to make sure lived experience stays at the centre of any change. There's definitely more talk locally about social care futures, and I've noticed more hope being expressed by carers. This all fits in with Key Change 5, sharing powers as equal, because carers now have a strong and visible role in shaping the service they rely on. It also connects with Key Change 3, leading the lives we want to live, because when carers are supported properly, they can live fuller, less stressful lives. One of the best things I've seen is the dedication and commitment of our Social Care Futures core group to making real change happen. I really wish more people could see the passion and drive of the social care team. They're not talking just about change, they want the right change. As a carer, it's genuinely reassuring to know that our local authority truly cares and is working alongside us to build something better.
Across adult services, commissioning and optimists, people with lived experience have been involved in the recruitment of staff. Participants get training and are paid for their time. I help with the interview questions. I listened to each person who came in for the job. I got to ask questions and give my views on who I thought were right for the role. I know what it is like to need support. I know how important it is to be treated with kindness and respect. So I look for when we are choosing new staff, we just don't want people with the right skills. We want people with the right values. Being involved gave me confidence. I felt like I was making a difference, not just for me, but for other people who use services. The link with the key change, sharing power as equals, listening to each other and making decisions side by side.
Good evening, I'm Greg. We've been working on fixing the plumbing and wiring of direct payments. That means to say, making the whole system work better behind the scenes. Together with families, voluntary groups and social care teams, we've made some real significant changes. These include clearer advice for residents, new training for staff and community groups who also support residents, and a new recruit who's focused solely on community outreach and support. This work links to the key change leading the lives we want to live, because direct payments gives people more control and choice over their care. At last year's big gathering, I co-hosted a session all about the flexibility and choice direct payments can offer. My own personal assistants, or PAs, joined me to share their experiences, and I talked about how I've built a team that suits me, recruiting people with the right values, interests, qualities, and the skills they can develop. I've also worked alongside the direct payments team to offer peer support to people who are considering direct payments. My role as a Woking resident who has been doing this for a while now was to provide some real life experience about how it works for me. And finally, I co-delivered training for local people how to find, recruit and retain personal assistants. We had advisors in the room to answer questions that can sometimes put people off. For example, we gave helpful advice what it means to be an employer, how to handle things like payroll, sick pay, and how to get the right support in place.
As you can see, it's been a busy 18 months since we were previously in front of you. An amazing amount of work has been going on to improve lives of local residents, and we're proud of what we've achieved so far. When we signed up to Social Care Futures Vision, we knew it was part of a long-term movement for change. We've come a long way, but we also know there's more to do. We've identified new areas to focus on in the coming months to keep improving people's experiences. For myself as a carer, it hasn't been an easy 18 months. Life for me and my family has often felt like a roller coaster, and the stress has been unbearable. When my disabled son's day service broke down, it really opened my eyes to how limited the services are in Wokingham for people with more complex needs. But on a positive note, I'm receiving amazing support from Daniel's social worker and the wider social care team. Honestly, the most helpful support I've ever had. What's made a big difference is we've had clear, honest, respectful conversation, and that matters an awful lot when you're under stress. That's why I'm hopeful about the work we're doing on gloriously ordinary language. It's all about making sure social care conversations, recorded information, even job descriptions, use language that's clear, kind, and human. It's about how we talk to each other and how we make people feel heard and understood. This supports Key Change 5, sharing powers as equal, because when people understand what's being said, they can be part of decisions about their care. It also supports Key Change 3, leading the lives we want to live, by making social care easier to understand, navigate, and trust.
And now a bit about housing. This links with Key Change housing, which is something we want to work on improving. This links with Key Change number 2, living in a place that we call home. Because of having a good home is really important. I'm happy to say that I have now moved into my own place, but getting there was not easy. So the system is too complex. We want to make this application for housing more simple and less stressful for everyone, including parents and carers. So we also want to improve the information available and make it sure it is easy to read for everyone. And thank you.
This year, we've started to build stronger connections with the council teams outside of adult services. That's important because if we really want to achieve social care future vision, we have to look beyond just social care. We've set up a Woking Borough Council action group and it's starting to take shape, gain momentum. One of the first topics we've looked at is the planning and design of community spaces. I'm pleased to be able to take some colleagues around this very building to show them the barriers I myself experienced. We talked about how the building is generally fit for purpose, but how life itself has changed. For example, some people now use much larger electric wheelchairs. This makes things like the lift, the accessible toilets, more challenging to use. The team said it was insightful and very helpful to see these challenges faced in real life. Building on that, I've also visited Elms Field and the Carnival Pool, one of the borough's flagship newer developments. I went to see how easy it was to get in and move around the space. I was able to share my findings with members of the action group. The cafes and local businesses along Elms Field are not fully wheelchair accessible, so this issue can be resolved. This kind of involvement links with the key change, communities where everyone belongs, because if public spaces aren't accessible, then not everyone can take part. It also connects to sharing power as equals, because people with lived experience are being listened to and helping to shape the improvements. Now, there's more. Our approach isn't to attack or complain. It's simply to show that everyday barriers and work together to find the solutions. Sometimes designs might hit the target on paper and miss the point in practice. That's why we're working on setting up an inclusive design group, bringing together people with a wide range of disabilities to give simple, honest and practical feedback. We hope this group becomes a go-to for colleagues designing and planning spaces and public transport, so that the people who use them are part of the process right from the start. This links with Key Change 1, communities where everyone belongs, making spaces welcoming and accessible for all. It also supports Key Change 5, sharing power as equals, because lived experience is shaping these changes.
We are excited to introduce a new fund called Sparks, which is coming later this year. Sparks is here to help people in our community who have great ideas to support our social care future visions and make life better for others. If someone has a good idea, like starting a group, running an event, or creating a helpful service, they can ask Sparks for money to help get their ideas started. A group of local people will choose which ideas get the money. We want Wokingham to be a place where everyone is treated with respect, everyone feels like they belong, and everyone can share ideas and work together to make things better. Sparks is about making real changes and getting more people involved in the social care futures movement. We can't wait to see all the amazing ideas people come up with. This helps with key change for more resources, better use by giving money and support to projects that really matters to the people who live here.
We're nearly there, I promise. At the various meetings we've been to, members asked us how they could help, and this is what we'd like. Show visible support, help raise awareness of social care futures by being seen supporting it at your events, in the media, and when visiting local groups or speaking to people who use services. It would also be great, and this is one of my favourite ones, if election canvassers were actually aware of social care futures and local social care developments. I will be checking next time they come round. Encourage wider engagement. Please support efforts to get all council departments and teams on board with social care futures. Encourage any officers you work with to collaborate with us. Live the Charter principles. Keep demonstrating the values of the Charter in everyday work and interactions. Please display the Charter in your workplace and proudly show you're working with Social Care Future Way. Thank you.
Any questions to the floor?
Yes, Stephen, you have a question?
I'm afraid it's not a question, Callum. It's a comment, more than a comment, just a thank you. I hope on behalf of the whole council, to you, Callum, and to Greg, and to Jay, and to Yvonne, for what was an incredibly inspiring and very moving presentation that I think reminded us of the vital importance of social care future and all the work you're doing. I also want to thank everyone involved in the social care future movement here in Wokingham, whether that's users of our services, who are obviously the key players in this, but also our partner organisations, our council officers who offer brilliant support to social care future, and elected councillors who are involved. I want to thank you for everything that's been achieved this last year. You gave us a great picture of achievement, things improving, which was really heartening to hear. Obviously, I'm very familiar particularly with the extension of the use of the bus pass, and really pleased that that was brought off. It was a great example, really, of listening and then acting and being able to use a relatively modest sum of money to be able to achieve what I think was a really impressive result for all those who have been able to benefit from it. But there are lots and lots more things that were said in terms of achievements. But there's clearly quite a bit more to be done, a lot more to be done. And listening to Yvonne's comments at the end there, it's very clear that we do need to continue engaging, continue listening, and continue trying to bring about improvements wherever we can. And I hope all councillors will reflect on what our presenters have told us, and you know, the good, the bad, and the not so good, and think about what we can do as ambassadors for the social care future movement here in Wokingham. We as elected members have the opportunity, as Yvonne was telling us, not just to make sure that people who knock on doors know what social care future is, but that we promote it at every opportunity in our communications and our engagement with other bodies outside the council, and in that crucial way that I think Yvonne and Greg highlighted, which was the way we get all parts of this council to recognise the importance of social care future, not just adult social care, but all the other parts of the council that interact with it. I think we've got some good work started on that front. We've really got good connections, and comes back to Callum's point about housing. I think we're getting good connections between housing and adult social care that's delivering really good accommodation. And by the way, I'm delighted, Callum, you're in your own place. That's brilliant news. So I think, we're making progress, but there's a lot more to do, and we'll only be able to do that by listening to you and engaging with you, and I'm sure we can all commit to doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. David, you indicated, but are you speaking separately to the reports? That I'm aware of the time that we've got on this item.
I was going to say something yes, just to thank them and so on.
Oh, please do that quickly. Yeah, that's fine.
Please? Because, yeah, thank you. I'm going to thank the Fabulous Four because they've been here before and they're here again. And it's wonderful to hear their presentation and to hear how we're going forward with Social Care Futures, which is such an important part of our services to ensure that all users are listened to. And I think Yvonne said she was listened to almost for the first time, she felt. And that's important, that people are listened to and their views respected in a very real way. And it's great how this is developing. And I must emphasise, as in fact Greg and then Stephen have said, this is not just something for adult services. It isn't something for a few of us. It's something for every councillor, every council officer, every part of this council. That Social Care Futures is something to make us listen, respect people, hear people, work with people, so that we can do the best for people, even with our limited resources. And it was great that Greg talked about using all Wokingham services. Certainly, he's got the action, he's doing it. Callum, I know, had a very strong voice on transport, and transport was one of the first things with the buses that we did. But also, he has lived experience of trying to get through the housing maze, I was going to say, but how that is for someone like him. And it's great that he has that lived experience and he's bringing it to us. Jay's very interested in making sure that people who are being interviewed are really being interviewed so that they learn about the person and they react well to the person. And it's almost about, sometimes it's not about how much factual knowledge they have, it's about the person and their empathy and things like that that matters. And then Yvonne talked about Gloria's ordinary language. And she said how important that is, that we make things as simple as possible so that people can understand. Everyone can understand. And I'm sure all of us here have read things which we don't understand, or read a job description which we don't understand. It's about making things as simple as possible for all of us. But as Yvonne said, often we ask, what can we do? And then we don't listen to what they say. And I want to reiterate what she said, not the whole thing, I'm afraid, but just we need to show visible support. We need to encourage wider engagement, and we need to live the Charter principles. All of us, not just those of us involved with adult services, but all of us need to do that for the better of the people we work with. And yes, we're going forward, and that's great, and I've heard some exciting things about what's going to happen.
Can you wrap up, please, David?
Going to happen. But we need to make sure that we go forward together as a united force. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just want to clarify, I understood that to be a comment following our presentation, as was Stephen's. Pauline, you want to speak as well, but we haven't yet moved the report. Is that right, David? That wasn't moving the...
That was right, sorry.
Yeah, okay, thank you. In view of that, I think we're going to have to extend the time on this item so that Pauline, you can speak and we can move the report. So if you want to carry on.
Sorry, thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't intend to say very much. I'd just like to echo Stephen's comments. I completely agree with him. It's very good to see you, and it was very good that you took the time and came to our group meeting to talk to us more informally at the time. So thank you very much for that as well. I know how nerve-wracking this must be for you, and I really appreciate the fact that you've taken the effort to come and talk to us. And I'd also like to congratulate Matt and the officers for taking this approach. It's really good to see people interested in what the actual experience of care is like, rather than thinking that they know better. So well done, Matt. Well done to the social services team.
Thank you very much, Pauline. I'd just like to add my thanks to Jay, Callum, Yvonne and Greg for turning up. It's so valuable for us to hear what goes on in the real world. We're so busy with our papers, and what you've been talking about has brought everything to life, and it's helping us to understand some of the challenges that you face. I think they all deserve another round of applause. Stephen, yeah.
Madam Mayor, may I then propose the recommended action, which is in your agenda on page 37, I believe. Yep, the 3 points there. I won't read them all out. I think all councillors can read them themselves. Can I propose that we adopt those recommendations? And I hope David will put his hand up to second, and I hope we won't require any debate on that.
Right, thank you very much. So we have a proposal that's in your papers, seconded by David Hare. All those in favour, please show. Is there anybody against? Any abstentions? No? Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. We'll just give some time to let everybody disappear from the... Not everybody, for you to leave the council chamber. Okay, thank you very much. We've got Priya and Madeline back, so we can carry on. Right, we've got on to item 24, which is the inclusion, diversity and equality. We haven't got to 24. We've 23, sorry, I do apologise. I'm not trying to move us on quickly, honest. Item 23, I turned over too soon. I understand that Stephen Conway, you're proposing a report. Do you have a seconder, please?
I do.
Oh, Rachel, thank you very much.
I'd like to second, thank you.
Would you like to speak to the report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The new council plan establishes the direction of travel and priorities for the council over the next 5 years. It focuses on the need for prevention and early intervention, reducing inequalities and supporting those who most need help. The plan is informed by the Marmot principles of public health, which emphasise the need to address health inequalities and the importance of prevention and early intervention to control future costs and produce better outcomes for our residents. The council plan also embodies our commitment as a council to creating inclusive communities where everyone, regardless of who they are, can contribute. And we've heard moving testimony already this evening from our social care future presenters on the importance of inclusive communities where everyone can play their part. But the biggest influence on the council plan is surely the community's vision, the pioneering work led by our residents to create a set of local priorities that those who live and work in the borough wish to see implemented over the coming decade. The council plan is our commitment to deliver our part of the community's vision. It remains for me only, I think, to thank officers involved in working on the council plan for their painstaking efforts and their willingness to take on board calls for tweaks and clarifications. The plan has been through careful examination at a cross-party overview and scrutiny committee, twice, I believe. Was it 3 times? 3 times, I'm assured. And has benefited from the suggestions made by members. And given that member input, as the council plan developed, I trust council as a whole will support its adoption this evening. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Does anybody want to speak against the report? No? So in which case we can move to vote on the item. All those in favour of the recommendations as set out in the report, please raise your hand. Is there anybody against? Are there any abstentions? Thank you very much. Okay, that's carried. Thank you. A bit of deja vu now. We're on to item 24. Again, that's the Inclusion, Diversity and Equality Strategy. I understand Rachel Bishop-Firth, you're proposing the report. Could I ask who is your seconder, please?
Thank you. That's Imogen Shepherd-Dubé.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to present the report?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to bring our new equality, diversity and inclusion policy and our new equality objectives to the Council tonight. This policy describes how we'll ensure that we're serving all of our residents and for making sure that they have equitable access to opportunities, services and support. Thank you to the Wokingham Borough Voice of Inclusion and Equality and the WBC staff groups who co-produced this policy and who have joined us here tonight. We all understand that as a council we have legal obligations to treat our residents and workforce fairly. The law says that we have to consider how our policies and decisions affect people from different protected groups, take steps to eliminate discrimination, advance equality of opportunity and foster good relations between the different groups in our community. We need to set equality objectives every 4 years. But beyond meeting our legal obligations, what do we want to achieve? We want to make sure that our decision making is based on a strong understanding of the needs of our residents right across the community. All of our age groups, including the elderly, who often have particular needs, men and women, care leavers, members and former members of the armed forces, residents who are pregnant or who have a disability. This policy commits us to using both data and insight from our residents on their experiences to understand what they need. This will help us to ensure that our services are designed to meet their needs. For example, ensuring that residents who use a wheelchair can access our buildings, that those who don't use the internet can access services, and that we are supporting those who need help with forms. We commit to then setting priorities which focus on those who have the greatest need. We aim to build trust between different groups of residents. Last year, mistrust and misinformation resulted in violence, looting and arson in a number of UK communities. We need to do what we can to prevent this from happening in Wokingham. We commit to strengthening our partnerships with different groups within our community and workforce. We've engaged widely on this policy with residents and community groups, including representatives of those with protected characteristics. We see this as just the start of the journey and hope to have the support of councillors as we continue to develop links with all parts of the community. And we commit to sharing the results, impact and progress with residents. 2,500 people, officers, residents, members and outside organisations took part in producing this policy. This reflects what Wokingham residents want to see and we're hugely grateful for their participation. It's also been through cross-party review at overview and scrutiny 3 times during its development. And I hope that we can all vote in favour of this policy and the objectives tonight. And Madam Mayor, I'm joined, I hope, online by Alice Kunjapi-Clifton from the Wokingham Residents' Voice of Inclusion and Equality, and also by Shahzada Ahmed, who's representing our staff groups. and they would both like to say a few words. And I think, Alice, you're going first. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair, for having me today. And just to say that today I'm really proud to be present when Councillor Bishop Firth presents the Council the Wokingham Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Strategy. The EDI strategy is often seen as just about tackling racism. And while that is important, this strategy is about much more. It's about creating a borough where everyone feels welcome, treated fairly, and truly belong. It connects directly to the community vision and the aspiration to being a Mahmud borough, where health opportunities and dignity are part of the everyday life for everyone. This strategy isn't something we put on the shelf. It needs to be part of everything we do, shape how we plan, how we serve, and how we grow as a community. It's a celebration of the voices that help shape it, and a promise to those who still wait to be included, because inclusion isn't a destiny, it's a journey we take together. So let's make sure belonging becomes the norm in Wokingham through this strategy, not an exception. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, who's next? Thank you.
Hi everybody, I'm here as a representative of all the staff networks at Wokingham Borough Council, and it's a privilege to be here to speak to you all. My journey here has been very impactful to myself as well as other colleagues, and through the staff networks I can speak for myself and say that I feel more valued, more seen, and that reflects in the work that I do and my commitment to my role. And we've seen so many positive changes come about, a lot of strategy changes with an understanding from an EDI perspective, which previously maybe wasn't as important, and now it really is, and I just feel very lucky to be part of this process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's really useful to hear, sort of those outside comments. So thank you for coming along. Thank you. Right, we've had the proposal. Does any councillor wish to speak against the reports? Yeah, I've got a seconder, yes. Right, so that's Pauline and... Okay, but before we start on that, can I ask the seconder if they want to speak or reserve their right?
I would like to reserve my right to the end, please.
Thank you. Okay, Pauline, carry on.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to put this in context, I completely agree with everything that's in the paper. However, my view is that this is not inclusive enough. As Council Bishop Firth said, this has been through scrutiny several times, and indeed it has. It went to scrutiny on the 15th of May, and at that point, scrutiny committee that discussed it agreed, having reviewed the list of people that were consulted, that there was a massive hole in that there was no consultation with the Hong Kong Chinese community. We discussed that at a significant amount of length and agreed that it was very sensible that we should include the Hong Kong Chinese community. And indeed, that was a unanimous view of the committee. I then skipped forward to the next scrutiny meeting when that wasn't actually on the minutes, so I got it corrected, so it was reinforced again that we wanted to see the Hong Kong Chinese community included in this consultation. And yet, despite that, the report turns up tonight and it still isn't included. So I can't support it because of that massive hole in terms of the inclusivity of this report. However, I do support the inclusion policy and the fact that we're actually trying to include as many people as possible. I just don't think it goes far enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter, you had your hand up.
Madam Mayor, I do not oppose the equality, diversity and inclusion policy per se, but there is little point in adopting these worthy objectives if the Council fails to apply them to its own projects. As part of the consultation on the California Crossroads redevelopment, the Guide Dogs for the Blind, an organisation that I currently work for, provided feedback on the scheme. A key recommendation was the inclusion of a formal pedestrian crossing, such as a pelican or even a zebra crossing, to provide a safe crossing for blind and visually impaired pedestrians. The new crossing doesn't include a formal pedestrian crossing. Now, despite our DI policy saying the Council will listen to our residents and make changes to improve people's lives, it has ignored the needs of the visually impaired in this case. Following the implementation of the new crossroads, Guide Dogs carried out a detailed review and requested changes to the crossing, including the provision of a controlled pedestrian crossing. It remains to be seen whether we will now listen to our residents and any changes will be made. The proposed designs for the A329 London Road, which include better facilities for cyclists, has not had any consultation with disabled organisations which represent those with visual or physical impairments. The designs include island bus stops, which have been such a disaster in London and which effectively exclude disabled people from using public transport. These island bus stops require bus users to cross from the pavement to the bus stop across a dedicated cycleway. Now, this is dangerous enough as a sighted person, as many cyclists are unwilling to stop at a pedestrian crossing. Just imagine the risk as a blind pedestrian. The fear of stepping into the unknown will stop many visually impaired people from using these bus stops and effectively exclude them from using public transport. Guide Dogs have worked with University College London to produce a document designing for inclusion, which warns of the dangers of island bus stops. I recommend the Council adopts it as part of the highway design policy. The presentation we saw earlier on the social care future should inspire the Council to include those ambassadors in consultations about these projects. Madam Mayor, it is gesture politics to vote through a revised DEI policy, whilst at the same time failing to uphold the principles of the policy when delivering infrastructure improvements.
Thank you very much. Imogen, as the second, I've just got another hand up. Adrian.
Thank you. I'd just like to take a slightly different tack and to draw attention as the Armed Forces champion for the borough, that I'm delighted that we've included people with a connection to the Armed Forces in our extended list of protective characteristics in this policy. Council has a duty under the Armed Forces Covenant to ensure that members of the Armed Forces community face no disadvantage compared to other citizens in the provision of public and commercial services, and the Council has signed the Armed Forces Covenant to signify this. Their inclusion in our equality, diversity and inclusion policy is a common sense way to enact this duty and will make it much simpler for the Council to deliver this duty, and on that basis I think it's an excellent addition to this policy, which I wholeheartedly support.
Thank you very much. Prue, you had your hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to add two very short things. I'm very pleased to see specific mention of care leavers as a particular category of people that need our special support in the community, but also to note that along with all the other things that we're seeking to do, we are also looking after those who are struggling financially, and that is an sadly ever-growing part of our population, and do really need our help, and I'm very pleased that as a council we are directing it towards them.
Andy.
Yeah, first I would like to declare that I'm a volunteer with the Reading Hong Kong CIC, and I know that Rockingham is one of the most popular destinations for people from Hong Kong. As a migrant from Hong Kong who has been elected as a councillor, I am pleased to see the Rockingham Borough Council is committed to support our right and quality of life in Rockingham. I hope that in the future, the Rockingham Borough Council will continue to strengthen its connection with the Hong Kong community, including the CIC, which provide essential service and activity to those in need. As a migrant, I know that migrants face one of the most challenging transitions in life. But with the support of the people, the council, and the policies, I believe we can not only to integrate and live our life well, but also contribute to the society that has given us a new beginning. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't see any other hands. So as a seconder, Imogen, did you want to write a word?
Yes, of course. I mean, I entirely welcome the strategy, and it sets out the Council's policies and intentions, ensuring that we meet the needs of all of our residents. We have consulted widely with local groups and hope to build a vibrant, cohesive community that reduces unfairness and supports those that need our help the most. I agree that not everything about this policy is perfect, and I do believe that we should be putting pressure on our council departments to stay in line with this. I mean, such as the question about the audible crossing, I totally get it, but we should be, talking to highways and saying, we have this policy, can you please make sure that it works for everybody? And also with the Hong Kong Chinese community, it's good that it was mentioned and that they should be brought in, but getting Hong Kong Chinese people elected, I think, is actually a very good way of having them represented, as Andy has just spoken. Most importantly, the expectation for this report is not just for Woking Borough Council alone. The expectation is also for the same of our suppliers, especially when they're providing services to Woking Borough Council residents. We expect all of our suppliers and contractors to treat our residents the same way as they would, as what Woking Borough Council would, without any excuses. I hope that councillors will welcome the introduction of ZDI strategy and are willing to support this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Imogen. We now move to the vote on this item. All those in favour of the recommendations set out in the report, please raise your hand. Okay. Oh, thank you. All those against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you. Item 25, which is the review of the allocation and appointment to seats on committees and boards following the Maiden Early and Whitegates by-election. I understand, Stephen, you're proposing the report. Do you have a seconder, please? Thank you. You want to carry on?
I won't detain us long, I hope, on this. It's a straightforward implementation of the rules of proportionality and the distribution of places between parties following the Maiden Early and Whitegates by-election, and I hope all members will support it.
Thank you. Or short. Does any councillor wish to speak against the report? No? So we'll move directly to the vote then. All those in favour of this report, so I'm reading it against, yeah. We have a seconder, which is Prue. Sorry, I should have announced that, I beg your pardon. So all those for, thank you. Thank you very much. Anybody against? Any abstentions? No? Thank you. That's carried. Item 26 is the approval of a period of absence for Councillor Jordan Montgomery. Again, Stephen, I believe you're proposing it, and do you have a seconder? Prue, thank you very much. If you'd like to carry on.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I hope this item will be as straightforward as the last. It's before us because one of our colleagues has been experiencing a prolonged period of illness that makes attendance at council meetings very difficult for him. There have been several occasions in my memory as a councillor, which does stretch back admittedly rather a long way, when we as a council have been asked to give dispensation from attendance requirements when councillors of all parties have experienced similar long-term health problems. Always, council has done the right thing and has given that dispensation. So I'm hoping, therefore, that colleagues will approve this period of absence, join me in wishing Jordan a speedy recovery. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. Does any councillor wish to speak against the report? Yes.
I don't want to speak against it, but could I just make a comment from our group to again wish Jordan all the best and hope that he recovers quickly.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So we've moved to the vote on that item then. All those in favour, please show. Anybody against? Any abstentions? No, that's carried. Thank you very much. Is the Community Governance Review. Fu, I believe you're proposing a report. Do you have a seconder? Thank you, Martin. Right to carry on, Fu.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We started the Community Governance Review back in January, so this is the halfway point in the process. I would like to thank everyone who sent in ideas earlier in the year. The working group has now come up with a set of draft proposals, and tonight we are being asked to agree to start consulting on them. I need to draw your attention to some supplementary documents that have come in for this item, which have a few minor corrections, and that includes an inconsistency on when the consultation finishes, and I can confirm that it will end on the 13th of November. Consultation is a mandatory part of the process, and it needs to happen now so that we have time to consider the responses before we make our final decisions next January. January is a hard deadline, as under the regulations we have 1 year to complete the work. The working group was cross-party, and I would like to thank everyone involved for the effort they put in. Not all our decisions were unanimous, and it's possible that we will get responses from the consultation which will cause us to change our recommendations. There were some complicated issues to navigate our way through. One was how best to draw up the parish boundaries in the southwest of the borough to take account of the development in the Arborfield Garrison area. And I believe that what has come forward is sensible, but we shall see what people think of it. Another is parish warding, where we received a number of requests for changes, and we await the verdict of the public and the affected parish and town councils on our suggestions. The most difficult issue has been the question of what should happen to the new housing in the South Wokingham strategic development location. This area is currently in Wokingham Without, but as the name suggests, will be in essence an extension of Wokingham Town. We heard from both Wokingham Town Council and Wokingham Without Parish Council, and after much discussion, opted to leave the area in Wokingham Without. I think we are still open to persuasion as to which council it should fall under in the final proposals, so please do send in your thoughts on that one. I think it's very unlikely that every proposal will meet with universal favour. However, I would ask you to remember that what we're being asked to do tonight is send the draft out for consultation, not make a final decision. I would urge you to use the opportunity to respond to the consultation if you have any qualms about any of the individual items in the paper, and I ask you to support the recommendations now so that the consultation can begin.
Thank you, Prue. Does any councillor wish to speak against the report? So we'll just take a note of those. So Martin, can I ask, do you wish to speak now or to reserve your right?
Could I reserve my right?
Okay, thank you. Rachel, I saw your hand first.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. First, I wanted to thank the officers for the huge amount of work that's clearly gone into these proposals. We do agree with the vast majority of what is in here, but it is a shame that the working group itself has arrived at one important conclusion that is, to me, is bereft of logic, and that is the one that Prue has already alluded to. The question of whether the new South Wokingham housing, which is to be built in the South Wokingham SDL on the south border of Wokingham, should be part of Wokingham Town or not, has been, I'm afraid, badly fudged here. Everyone who is looking at buying a property or renting a property in that area will believe they are looking for a place to live in Wokingham. They will tell their friends, they will tell their family that they have moved to Wokingham. A cursory glance at any future map will show this area is part of the settlement called Wokingham. Prue herself said a moment ago that it is an extension of Wokingham Town. The council's own officers have sought to informally name the new development area as Wokingham Meadows. Whatever one thinks of that particular name, it's instructive the officers did not suggest Wokingham Without Meadows. And the reason they didn't is because this area will be part of Wokingham. As councillors, we've been given the opportunity here to shape the future of this new community. We have the opportunity to ensure that the area grows into an important part of an established community. Instead, the working group effectively has said, let's wait and see, maybe someone else will do it later down the line. And we know that that means that this means years and years of people getting confused about where they live. They will rightly say, this makes no sense. I do understand, obviously, the reasoning behind delegating the consideration of such complex matters to a small group of councillors, but that doesn't mean that we here must abrogate our responsibilities as a full council when that small group reaches an incorrect conclusion. The current conclusion as it stands and the wording sends the wrong message and should not be put out to consultation. Let's be clear, voting for this consultation to go out in its current form with this conclusion will make it harder to get the right result after the second round of consultation. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Shona, you put your hand up.
Thank you very much. And I would also like to thank the officers for all their hard work. I'm voting against the proposed boundary change to include the triangle of the properties to the east of the railway line, which are currently in Finch Hampstead, into the parish of Wokingham Without. There will be no material gain for any of the residents of if the existing boundaries change. However, if they do become part of Wokingham Without, they will be forced to pay a significantly higher precept. I'll be urging all of the residents to take part in the consultation and to share their strong views.
Thank you very much. Right, if we go back to the second, Martin, you're reserved your right.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A community governance review is a way for councils to make sure that at a parish level, governance arrangements are working as efficiently and effectively as they should be. This is achieved by asking the public, town and parish councils, and any interested parties whether they feel their communities are suitable represented, and whether town and parish councils would like to see any changes made to their current governance arrangements. The scope of the governance review, community governance review, includes modifications to parish boundaries and internal parish ward arrangements. Wokingham Borough Council set up a community governance review working group in January. The working group is a politically balanced cross-party member working group, and its objectives are to ensure that town and parish arrangements meet the needs of their community. It was established to make recommendations to the Council about a community governance review. The working group is advisory only, with no formal decision-making powers. The initial consultation ran from 3rd of January to 25th of April and gathered views on the current governance arrangements and any proposed changes. These have been used to inform the draft recommendations contained in the report. The working group strove for consensus wherever feasible, and I believe we've provided clear rationale for decisions made. I would like to thank the public and the parish and towns councils for providing input into the initial consultations. I would like to thank the other members of the work group for the valuable insights during our discussions. And I would like to thank the officers for all their support and guidance. Finally, I would like to ask the Council to support the recommendation that Wokingham Borough Council starts a second public consultation based on the proposals made by the cross-party Community Governance Review Working Group. The consultation will run until 13th of November, and the Council will be asked to approve the final proposals in January next year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'd like now to move, move to a vote on the item. I thought as it wasn't a motion. As I understand it, it's not a motion, therefore you haven't got the right to reply, but we'll find out. Right, the advice I have is to go straight to the vote. So, all those in favour of the recommendation set out in the report, please show. Thank you. And all those against? Thank you. Are there any abstentions? No, that's carried. Thank you very much. Right, item 28 is the procurement of the energy contract 2026-27. Imogen, I understand you're proposing that with this report. Do you have a seconder, please?
I'm not proposing it, sorry, Stephen is.
Oh, I've got duff information on my sheet. Go on, Stephen, thank you. Do you have a seconder?
I think I do. Madam Mayor,
Who is
the
it?
council's...
Oh, okay.
It's Stephen. The council's current energy contract is with Laser Energy, and that contract expires at the end of next March. Approval of the agreed procurement route is required by the end of the summer to enable the contractor to secure the best possible prices for 2026-27. So that in practice means it requires approval this evening. The proposal before you is to award a one-year interim contract to Laser through direct award. The intention is to carry out a full open procurement from April 2027, when the picture will be clearer regarding best use of the energy generated by the new Barkham solar farm. That full open procurement in 2027 will be subject to executive and council approval. There are currently two major suppliers to local authorities in the market, which between them provide energy for 95% of councils: Crown Commercial Services and Laser. Crown Commercial Services was our contractor in 2023-24, but Laser, our contractor in 2024-25, secured better prices for us and offers more flexibility in its approach to changing market conditions. Our experience with Laser, in short, strongly suggests that it represents the best value for money for this one-year interim contract. And on that basis, I would urge colleagues to support the recommendation.
Thank you, Stephen. Is any councillor wishing to speak against this report? Yep, Moses, thank you. Anybody else? No. In which case, can I ask the seconder, are you, the other Stephen, if you wish to speak now or reserve your right?
I'll reserve my right, please.
Thank you. Moses, carry on.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not exactly speaking against the proposal, but I'm going to abstain because looking through the report, I observed that the primary reason for limiting the proposed contract duration to 1 year is the anticipation that the Barkham solar farm will come on stream in the spring of 2027. However, it is important to note that the earlier proposed date for SSEN connection is summer 2026. At the meeting of the Climate Emergency Overview and Scrutiny Committee in February, I expressed my very strong reservations about the possibility of connection to SSEN on that date. This is due to the apparent lack of a robust program of works and my personal knowledge and experience of the timescale for delivering a solar farm of this magnitude. At that meeting, the officers tried to reassure me that the works were on schedule. The leader of the council was there and he nearly laughed me to scorn. However, in the latest progress report, in the CIAP report, the date for the connection to SSEN has been shifted to autumn 2026. So I dare say at this moment that my expectation has been vindicated. I also want to note that assessment of progress of Barkham Solar Farm by the Climate Overview and Scrutiny Committee is not now until November 2025. That leaves not enough time to even do the work. So, it is my view that Barkham Solar Farm is unlikely to be ready before spring 2027. So I would have thought the prudent thing to do is for the council to enter into a 2-year contract so that we are not back here this time next year asking for another extension. So on that note, I will be abstaining and I will not be supporting the report.
Thank you, Moses. Right, so Stephen, if you'd like to speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think the purpose of this is to secure best value for the next 12 months. That's clearly the intent, and I don't think anybody's arguing about that. I think also we recognise this provides flexibility. It may well be that if things don't go as hoped for, that we do need to have a further short-term extension, and this does nothing to stop that. But if you actually contract for 2 years and then it changes in the meantime, you're limited, you're tied in with what you've got, and you can't take advantage of the opportunities that this does provide us. So I think that we are trying to keep our options open through this and not tie ourselves into something that may not work and may not deliver best value based upon a number of unknowns. So I think that we should be going ahead with this as presented. It represents good value for money. We've got proven track record with this supplier of delivering for us. And also, it offers just not to this council, but also to partners that can work and benefit from the same contract. So it provides not just impacts for this council, but for other people as well. And I think this provides a degree of certainty that any other route does not provide. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So if we move now to the vote, all those in favour of the report, please show. Thank you. All those against, please show. And those who are abstaining, please show. It's carried. Thank you very much. So we come to item 29, which is the Treasury Management Outturn Report for 2024-25. And this one is Imogen, I believe. Imogen.
It is indeed, thank you.
You're proposing a report. Do you have a seconder? Thank you very much. If you'd like to carry on.
Okay, thank you everybody. This is very much good news story, and it's illustrating good practices when it comes to managing our borrowing and debt management managing of our cash investments throughout, both of which help us deliver services to our residents, and it shows a summary of the Treasury management operations for monitoring purposes to the members of this council and to our residents. We have met most of the key performance indicators and everything is performing well, except for two in our housing revenue account. The housing revenue account is ring-fenced for our social housing stock. One of these KPIs, key performance indicators rather, is the ratio of financing cost to the net revenue stream, and is due to the ratio of financing costs being higher than expected in the Treasury strategy. This is due to the interest rates being related to new borrowing being increasing in the second part of the year. These loans are on a short-term basis so that the council has an opportunity to refinance. The second indicator in the HRA is the gross external borrowing. HRA external borrowing as of the 31st of March was 91 million, which is higher than the strategy estimate of 87 million. This is still lower than the capital financing requirement, but we reviewed as part of our budget setting process. Outside of the key performance indicators, our total external general fund debt has gone down from 109 million to 99 million, which reduces our interest payment costs. In this current economic climate, this is very much needed and is much better than what was forecast. Our capital financing requirement as of the 31st of March has reduced to 368 million from the forecasted 392 million. Again, it shows we are keeping control of our spending. There's a lot of information in this report for those that are interested in how the council manages its finances, and I encourage anyone who takes an interest in how council does this to read it and come and ask us questions. We are asked to note the report because it's simply factual, but I hope you can all support what it is telling us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody against the report, please? No, if that's the case, we'll go straight to the vote then. All those in favour of the Treasury Management Outturn Report, please show.
We're in favour of noting it, which is what the thing. We're not saying we're in favour of the report. We're in favour of noting it.
Anybody against, noting or otherwise? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. That's item... It's carried, so I need to say that. Item 30, which is the revised constitution of SACRE. Prue, I understand you're proposing a report. Beth, I should know that, shouldn't I? Beth, you're proposing it. Do you have a second to Beth? I think it's Stephen. Thank you, if you'd like to go ahead.
May I speak, Madam Chairman? Thank you. I've forgotten my hearing aids.
I'll shout at you.
I recommend this to you. Like any good organisation, the SACRE has to operate within rules. We have our constitution in the council and the SACRE has its constitution. Since it was last reviewed, the world has changed. We have many more and different religions within our country that operate. We have people who have no religion, and this new constitution recognises all of those, and so that we can learn to live together in peace and harmony, and I recommend it to you.
Thank you very much. Stephen, sorry, I need to ask if there's anybody who wants to speak against the report. No, so we can move straight to the vote in that case. All those in favour, please show. Anybody against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Thank you very much. So move on to item 31, which is the new syllabus for religious education 2026. And I think Stephen is proposing that. Thank you, Stephen. Do you have a seconder? Thank you. If you'd like to speak, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The new syllabus represents many, many hours of work by many people across the group, and I thank them for that. What is taught to our children really matters, as it can affect and influence their thinking and view of the world, not only for their own lives, but those that they interact with and those that come after them. I believe that we have a responsibility, and indeed a duty, where this council has influence over such matters, to help our children to understand and respect the different cultures that make up our society, and a very important aspect of that relates to the different faiths, beliefs and worldviews that are held. The new syllabus broadens the scope and inclusivity of what will be taught to better reflect our society. It is important that our children are taught well, so that in time they can make informed choices, as well as appreciate and respect the beliefs, worldviews and opinions of those around them. And I commend this new syllabus to Council and hope that all members will support it.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody that wants to speak against the report? Yeah, so then I'd like to go to this. Yeah, so go to the seconder to Beth. Do you want to reserve your right or speak now?
I'm happy to speak now.
Okay, thank you.
I've been on the SACRE since 1996, when it was first formed at the dissolution of Berkshire County Council. The unitaries that were then formed agreed as much as possible that they would retain the same syllabus to enable both pupils and staff who move between schools in the county to learn and be taught the same things regarding faith, and we continue to do that. For the first time, this syllabus has both humanism and worldviews on it, including in the teaching and learning. These developments represent the changes in both the way we live and the changes in our society. We have tried to reflect the way the world has changed and provide material to allow our students to understand and be able to discuss these changes as they mature and begin to understand the world that they live in. Once they leave our educational establishment and move on to either further education or the world of work, we aim to have taught them tolerance and patience, an understanding of the history and application of where faiths of the world have come from and their purpose. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Stephen Vey, who chaired the SACRE through this process, for his dedication as an RE teacher in getting it right, to one of our officers, Emily Wadilov, for her endless and probably saintly patience, and our advisors over the years for their wisdom, advice and support, sometimes in difficult situations, and to the chairman and vice chairs of the other 5 SACREs in Berkshire. I must include the non-political members of SACRE, teachers, members of faithful organisations who all give freely of their time. On a final note, I would like you to remember one of our officers who served for many years despite being ill. We are thankful for all she gave, and remember our colleague Andrew Sharma, who died recently after a long illness. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Beth. Alex, you use the motion to speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't want anyone to panic. I will be voting for this report. I will be constitutionally speaking against it. I've been a councillor for just over a year now, and the Woodley Library CCTV has been delayed. Government legislation on property management companies has been delayed. Me and Greg's bus route to Twyford has encountered some challenges.
Sorry, could I interrupt? This is about the religious...
It is.
Is it? Okay.
And my political career appears to be going up in flames. So I thought I would take 3 minutes of your time to talk about what will probably be the only thing that I managed to achieve as an elected representative. For those who haven't read the full report, one of the bizarre quirks of the 1996 Education Act is that SACRE decisions are voted on in 4 blocks, which represent the Church of England, teachers, other religious groups, and the local authority. The 2 people representing the local authority were myself and Councillor Montgomery. So due to his illness, this report literally wouldn't have made it to full council without me. Approving this syllabus was not without its challenges. It was originally approved in autumn last year, but this emerged from quite a flawed process. There appeared to be no methodology to determine which religions were covered at which key stages, which resulted in Hinduism only being recommended at a primary school level, despite being the joint second largest religion in the borough. In particular, the Judaism content had been changed without proper consultation and removed all references of the historical importance of Israel. Most importantly, though, it appeared to be encouraging teachers to treat religious education as a truth-seeking exercise rather than a study in cultural literacy. One suggested activity asked children to rank which religions they found most convincing, for example. I remember having my Christian faith interrogated at school, and I believe very strongly that children should not have to justify their religious beliefs in the classroom. I'm proud to say that Wokingham Borough overcame these challenges, and that Reading, Bracknell, West Berks and Windsor and Maidenhead are expected to follow our lead on this. I'd like to echo Beth's thank to our chair Stephen, our council officers Emily and Luciani, and the teaching staff and religious representatives for giving up so much of their time and being so patient with what was quite a lengthy and difficult process. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. Somebody else put their hand up, and I missed who it was. Did anybody else want to speak? No, sorry, I was imagining a hand. Okay. So if we go to the vote then, all those in favour of the new syllabus, please show now. Thank you. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Okay, that's carried. Thank you very much. Right, surprisingly, we've got to the councillor question time well ahead of time, so I think you'll all be pleased with that, so thank you for your patience. Just to remind you that the supplementary questions need to relate to the original question, and the response to that question must be no longer than 1 minute. So with those rules applying, we've got 17 councillor questions. So, no, later on, yeah. So first of all, first one is Rohit Alwat to ask a question of the Leader of the Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So my question is to Leader of the Council. Many of my residents are concerned about the growth of antisocial behavior in the borough, including a dog attack in a Laurel Park in May that left one person requiring surgery. Could the Leader of Council tell me what the Council is doing to address antisocial behavior, including its work with Thames Valley Police and our Police and Crime Commissioner? Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Rohit. You're raising an important point that is on the minds of many residents, I'm quite sure. I hope you're aware of the work undertaken by our own antisocial behaviour team, which does its best to respond speedily when any matters of concern are raised. And our officers in that team, I think, deserve all of our support for the work they do, which is really important and does, I think, benefit our residents. We, of course, work closely with the local police. You referred to Thames Valley Police. We work closely with the police and other agencies through at the Community Safety Partnership that brings together a multiplicity of bodies that are interested in these problems of crime, antisocial behaviour, and all of these things that might pose threats and difficulties for our community. That forum is a really excellent forum, works very well, enables us to coordinate activity with the police very effectively. We obviously liaise with the police on individual matters on a day-to-day basis. You will not be surprised that I can't tell you about those matters because they are operational matters which are necessarily things that must remain private. Coincidentally, you mentioned the Police and Crime Commissioner. Coincidentally, and it is entirely a coincidence, I'm sure, I am going to be meeting the Police and Crime Commissioner tomorrow morning. And I'm going to be discussing with him a whole range of things, but ASB is on my list of things I want to raise with him. I should also like to draw your attention to a report on antisocial behaviour drawn up by a task and finish group of the Thames Valley Police and Crime Panel and presented to the Police and Crime Commissioner in March. And our colleague Stephen Newton, who we've heard from several times this evening.
Stephen, you've had your time. If you could start to wrap up,
yes,
please.
Represented Wokingham on that task and finish group, and he played an important part in drafting the report.
Thank you very much, Rohit. Do you have a supplementary?
Yes, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Mr. Conway, for this explanation in detail. But I have a supplementary. My residents have expressed a strong view that they don't think the council is doing enough. Will the leader commit to meeting with me and some of my residents to discuss the issues specific to my ward and what the council can do to help address the growing problem of antisocial behaviour? Thank you.
Well, I can understand why people feel that they want more to be done. I can understand that completely. It is important to say, as I was trying to emphasise earlier, our antisocial behaviour team tries to respond as speedily as possible to any matters of concern that are raised with it. And I do recommend that you remind your residents of the need to bring these matters that they're concerned about to the attention of our antisocial behaviour team, and they will try and respond. It is important to say that sometimes issues that residents are concerned about are actually criminal acts rather than antisocial behaviour, and those criminal acts obviously require police intervention, and we will work closely with the police to try and deal with that. But if you have any specific concerns your residents raise, please bring them to my attention.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next question is from Shona Turtle of the Exec Council of Active Travel.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Wokingham Borough Council is currently building the Southern Relief Road. This involves extensive road closures of Finchampstead Road and Molly Miller's Lane over the next 6 to 9 months. At the same time, Wokingham Borough Council is building the new solar farm on Barkham Road. This may involve closures of Barkham Road. Closures on both major roads into Wokingham from the south of the borough will cause chaos and do real harm to Wokingham. Can you commit that these two key roads will not be closed at the same time?
Shona, thank you for your important question. I'm a councillor for the Barkham and Alberford area myself, so I fully understand the point behind the question. I can reassure you that Finchampstead Road and Barkham Road will not be closed simultaneously due to these works. This potential issue was raised in the Solar Farm Project Board last year, and it was clear at the time that this would not be an acceptable decision. As has already been mentioned this evening, the timing of the solar farm build, and in particular in relation to this question, the routing of the cable, because the farm itself is not on Barkham Road, remains dependent on SSEN, and indeed the routing of the power cable is still under consideration. It's possible there will be no works of any sort related to the solar farm on Barkham Road, though that decision is still to be taken. The High Wytham Transport team works very closely with both Borough Council and third-party project partners to ensure suitable routes are always available when disruption happens. Disruption is unavoidable, but we will always make every effort possible to minimise the impact on residents. I will take this opportunity to thank the residents who are impacted by the current works for their forbearance and for those who've contacted us about the impact they're seeing for their pragmatic approach when we've discussed this. Of course, it's always possible that unforeseen emergency works can be required, in which case the most suitable plan will be implemented to manage the impact, including consideration where necessary of delaying other planned works as on account of this.
Do you have a supplementary?
Yes, thank you. I'm pleased to hear that you commit to not closing the roads at the same time. Can you also confirm that there'll be no simultaneous closures of the Finch Hampstead Road and East Hampstead Road south of the level crossing?
Thank you, Shona. I did think you may ask this as supplementary, so I took the trouble to ask the same question of the team myself. We can't currently rule out current works because there are still aspects of the South Wokingham Distributor Road programme which are to be planned. However, currently there are no planned simultaneous closures. East Hampstead Road is scheduled to be closed from April 26 to February 27. That's already been approved, but that does not conflict with the current closures on Finch Hampstead Road. Team is trying to work out how best to accommodate the remaining work to be done, and as soon as we have a clear view on that, we'll be able to update yourself and the council and residents.
Thank you very much. The next question is from Vishal Srinivasan. Would you like to carry on?
Thank you. Currently, all elected members receive their payslips from the council via post. In my last payslip, this was over 80 pence and per member, and this would make it around £500 a year that could be spent somewhere else. There is also an environmental impact on this, putting something on paper that could have really been done digitally. Whilst officers receive payslips online, currently councillors don't have that option. When virtually every employer gives their employees payslips via online methods, why is Wokingham Borough Council still sticking to an outdated approach for councillors?
Thank you for your question, Vishal. Yes, the council do still indeed send payslips to elected members because they do not have access to the same electronic systems that are used by staff for their payroll services. The software that issues payslips is part of a wider internal system that is also responsible for storing personal employment details, appraisal information, departmental budget details, and administers the process such as the payments of invoices. There is currently an ongoing project to review our printer postage arrangements, which does include a plan for councillors' payroll information. It would involve securing the environment they currently use and narrowing it down the access to only the necessary payslip information that councillors would need, but we are confident that this will be possible. Whilst the cost of this is not substantial, I hope you understand that the solution must be secure for all confidential information. Thank you.
Vishal, do you have a supplementary?
So I guess my supplementary is, could the executive member commit to looking at members receiving payslips digitally quicker than just out there sometime, whilst also retaining an opt-in for those who want or need to get it in a paper form?
Well, I will be honest with you that when the question was asked, and I asked the officers, that they've kind of pushed it up the list a little bit because the question has been asked, so fair enough. But it has been on the table for a while. It's just that it wasn't high priority, but yes.
Thank you very much. The next question is from Catherine Glover to the Executive for Active Travel.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question, yes, is I was pleased to see the traffic regulation order for new speed limits being implemented a few weeks ago. And I'm looking forward to the logistical impediments to them being implemented in the 2 roads in Shinfield being overcome very soon, because they actually haven't been implemented yet. The remainder of my journey to Shoot End now seems much more logical, with Longdon Way, which is a continuation of Hatch Farm Way, now being 40 miles per hour, and the busy Reading Road being 30 miles per hour, apart from as opposed to the other way around. I'm aware that there are many other roads in the borough, from Thames to Swallowfield and from Maiden Early to Westcott, where residents feel that the speed limit is inappropriate. What advice can we councillors give them on the criteria used to set speed limits so that they can make proposals that are likely to be accepted?
Catherine, thank you for your feedback and question. I'm very pleased you've had positive experience with some of the recent speed limit changes. Regarding your question on how speed limits are determined, we are in the process of finalising a new speed limit policy which will give councillors and residents clear information on how limits are assessed across the borough. It's based on national guidance from the Department for Transport, which outlines the approach local authorities should take. The DFT guidance considers several factors, including collision history, the road environment, traffic volumes, pedestrian and cyclist activity, and current traffic speeds. These criteria help ensure that any changes are well justified and that speed limits are appropriate for the specific road. We've recently updated how residents can raise concerns about road safety, including speed limits. Councillors and residents are encouraged to use the council's website and search for Report a Road Safety Concern. This web page also explains how the team will investigate any reports, and it will in due course be updated to reflect the new speed limit policy.
Catherine, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, I do. So will the new policy give us the opportunity to suggest 20 mph speed limits on the large new estates or small new estates when they're handed over to us by developers, and perhaps 30 or 40 mph speed limits on country lanes, which are currently national speed limit?
Yes, the draft policy covers the criteria that will be considered in both those cases and others, and it should provide a logical process by which such limits can be reviewed, set and changed as appropriate. I am expecting that we'll be presenting the draft policy for wider scrutiny before implementation, and I look forward to doing so and to engaging councillors in that process.
Thank you very much. Move on then to a question from Mike Smith to the Executive Councillor for Economic Development.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The recent sports pitch strategy identified the need for 2 3G pitches in Earley and Woodley, if suitable sites were available. An assessment was to be made, according to the report, of all potential sites in the area. Please can we have an update on those assessments? Thank you.
Yes, welcome back, Mike. Yours was a memorable by-election victory indeed. And thank you for your first question back. Since the adoption of the playing pitch strategy, officers have been undertaking some informal engagement to establish which sites might be available to meet the need of the new 3G artificial pitch to serve the community of Earley. This is largely complete, and we expect to be able to undertake the assessment of potential early sites this autumn. The assessment of potential sites in Woodley is less pressing, given that there's already a degree of 3D artificial pitch provision within that area, and some of the development elsewhere within the borough are likely to free up additional capacity in Woodley.
Thank you, Mike. Do you have a supplementary?
I do, Madam Mayor, thank you. One of the big issues with any of the potential sites is parking availability. In fact, the success of the Laurel Park Football Club is causing issues now. Perhaps you could indicate whether or not you have any long-term plans to alleviate some of these issues, please.
Yes, thank you, Mike. As you know, and we've been working together as an Early community, and you've been really helpful. Thank you. And this is to find the most appropriate site, but if one cannot be found, then we need to enable the migration of Laurel Park Football Club and others out of Earley to find that provision, which would be a shame, I've got to say. So we're working with Marefield and Laurel Park right now. We're working long and hard as a community with all the stakeholders, and we're primed for the start of the season, which is September the 12th.
Thank you very much. Move on then to a question from Charles Margetts to the Exec Councillor for Children's Services.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Council announced in 2023 that it planned to build 2 SEND schools on land at Rooksnest Farm. The original proposal was these schools will be funded by central government and would help deal with the increasing SEND demand and would help to bring the Wokingham SEND deficit under control. Since the general election last year, the Labour government has refused to commit to funding the schools. If you believe the national media, the central government now appears uncertain on the future direction of SEND policy. Can the lead member explain the effect on SEND provision in Wokingham and the damage to Wokingham Borough Council funds if these schools are not built?
Thank you for your question, Charles. It's important to clarify that the announcement in 2023 related to a Department for Education commitment to fund and build the 2 new special free schools. The council wanted to have control of the build, but the Conservative government who awarded us the schools insisted that they must build them. So whilst the delay in confirmation on the future of these schools from both the Conservative and Labour governments is frustrating from a council perspective, there have been no indications that these schools will not be delivered, and the council is still operating under the assumption that they will be delivered, with all of the financial modelling that is provided to the DfE being based on this assumption, and none of that has been challenged. In the scenario in which both school projects were to be cancelled, this would place an additional 240 place pressure in respect of the council's SEND places position, as set out in the recently published SEND sufficiency statement. If no mitigating action were taken, this would create a revenue pressure of approximately £9 million over a 5-year period. However, the officers involved with this piece of work are monitoring the situation closely, and if one or both school projects were to be cancelled, would look to rapidly deploy alternative SEND place solutions subject to funding approval that could reduce this figure substantially.
Thank you. Charles, do you have a supplementary?
I do. Thank you for the clarity on that question, and also the clarity on the financial impact, which is very significant potentially. I note what you said at the end about an option B is being developed as an emergency, just in case this happens, which we all hope it does not. I wonder if you'd be good enough to actually share that, even if not in public, with all councillors, so they have sight of what is a very important issue potentially.
The SEND sufficiency statement is available to everybody. I'm quite happy to talk to anybody about what we need to do. I think the thing that is really difficult is that the Labour government have not yet made their announcements on the future of SEND, and therefore we don't know what the policy position will be and what we will be required to do. So we're kind of planning a bit in the dark, but we're doing our best to make provision in the best way we can. It is mainly looking at mainstream inclusion, which I think is the thrust of the government's position, so hopefully we won't be too far apart. But if anybody wants to know anything, I'm very happy to talk to them.
Thank you very much. Rebecca Marget's next question to the Exec Councillor for Economic Development.
Madam Mayor, before I ask my question, in accordance with 5.16M, may I request to suspend 5.14.8 and extend councillors' questions past 30 minutes so all members have the opportunity to publicly ask their questions?
Thank you, Rebecca. I was intending to propose that at the end of the 30 minutes, so I'd like to see where we get up to and then set a time to it, but thank you.
Thank you. On the 2nd of July, the Council issued a press release stating that Berks and Bucks FA would be the new leaseholder for football facilities at Cantley Park. It quotes Councillor Ashwell as saying, "I'm pleased to see Cantley Park is going to be given a new lease of life under Berks and Bucks Football Association. I believe this could be good news if it was the case. However, the Conservative group has been told by officers that no decision has been made and no lease has been agreed or signed. Is this the case, yes or no?"
Thank you for your question, Rebecca, and most importantly, your interest. The answer is yes and no. Firstly, I'm really pleased to be able to confirm that we're continuing to finalise the details of an arrangement with the Berks and Bucks Football Association, and that we believe will provide financial sustainability to maintaining this really important service that makes up part of our Cantley Park facility. The press release explained at the time that the council was in the process of appointing and that the arrangement was subject to contracts. As you would expect, a formal decision had not been made at the time. As you can imagine, with such business, officers from both organisations will work in principle to explore the opportunity, and as those details become clearer, appropriate formal governance and decisions will be enacted. As I was chairing a second resident and business engagement session that we called the Cantley Stakeholders Forum, I felt it was important to get views from service users and other service providers at an early stage, and the press release was issued to explain the intended direction of travel and the reasons for that option being developed. And I've got to say, it was really well received by all. And I can confirm right now that as arrangements have been developed further, we've been able to get to a position of taking a formal officer decision in line with the Council's constitution, and this was made by the Deputy Chief Executive on the 17th of July, which now allows officers to finalise and agree contracts, as would be the case with decisions taken by the Executive. And we expect the final steps to be completed in the coming weeks, ready for services to commence in the coming months.
I had originally thought I was going to say thank you for finally clarifying, but I'm not really sure that you did. You didn't really answer it. It was a yes and a no, and I wanted to say thank you, Mark, for actually answering my question. I don't think you really have, and you haven't addressed the fact that your press statement actually said, I am pleased to see Cantley Park is going to be given a new lease of life under Barks and Bucks, but yet a decision hasn't been made. Anyway, whatever we go forward now, please can I ask you to reassure local residents and users that the service will not change? Because if the decision has going through officers' delegation, that means that there's no change to the service. And there should be no additional fees, no additional car parking charges without it coming back to council. So if you could just clarify that for me, I'd be very grateful.
Yes, I can clarify that. Look, Rebecca, I realise it must be really difficult in opposition, and of course you could always join us Liberal Democrats and put people before politics. You know, you could always do that. Look, we've got a Cantley Stakeholders Forum in September. You are cordially invited as my guests, and I'd even pick you up if you like.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Right, if we can move on, please. The next question is from Pauline Jorgensen, question to the Executive Council for Planning and Enforcement.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I was interested yesterday on going to the planning training to find out I had a common view on this with my fellow councillor over there from Early, Mike Smith. I've had several comments from local residents who are unaware of planning requests which affected them. Can you advise who the council notifies of applications, how this is done, and why the council no longer asks applicants to display orange notices, which were very effective and indeed cost-effective ways of bringing requests to the attention of affected neighbours?
Right. Well, Pauline, we were both at the same meeting, so the answer is probably quite familiar to you, but may not be to everybody else. In the case of the majority of planning applications, there is a statutory requirement for the council to either notify adjoining properties or display a site notice. In addition to notifying town and parish councils and statutory consultees, our standard approach from the majority of submitted applications is to notify adjoining neighbours. Now, adjoining neighbours are those whose properties actually contact the area, so it's the person who's the other side of your fence, not somebody 2 fences away. This strategy accords with the updated Statement of the Community Involvement 2024, which removed earlier explicit commitments to a wider area notification back in 2018, before our time. As a minimum, notification postcards are issued to immediate neighbours adjoining the application site, as I mentioned earlier. In instances where a professional assessment is made that the likely impact of the proposal extends beyond immediate neighbours, the scope of the notification will extend accordingly. Site notices are displayed only where required by law. Examples of such requirements include major developments, those requiring environmental impact assessments, and those considered departure from the development plan. This is not an exhaustive list, and further detail can be provided if so required. It is worth noting that where not required by law, the case officer will send a site notice out to applicants' agents as a part of the validation process and encourage them to display it on the site, but this is not mandatory.
Thank you very much for that answer. I don't really understand why we don't use the relatively cheap method of asking people to put up an orange notice in all cases. I understand we don't have to, but it is going to be relatively cheap, and it is the best way of letting affected neighbours see what is actually going on. And I know Mike has similar concerns that there's a lot of affected neighbours don't know what's going on until the thing's approved. So I'd also point out that both Bromley and Ealing councils in London do still ask people to put out orange notices. So it's possible, it's cheap, and it's effective. Can I ask the executive member whether he will please reconsider his statement and look at whether we could actually do orange notices as well?
I'll go back to the team to find out what it would cost, but that's probably the bottom line, is what will it cost, how effective it will be, given that, for example, all the ward councillors are notified as consultees, and so are the parish councils, so there are ways of spreading them, and perhaps we'll come up with a decent compromise which suits most people, but the cost is a consideration. You've got the problem that if you go 2 houses either side, it suddenly increases the number of signs quite considerably. It's how you'd make those effective.
Thank you very much. Next question is from Peter Harper to the Leader of the Council.
The Council last year advised it was considering moving its headquarters to the former Marks and Spencer building on Rose Street. Can you update me on the latest situation on the future Council headquarters and when a decision will be reached?
Thank you for your question, Peter. In January of this year, the Executive considered the findings and outcomes from the latest stage of feasibility work undertaken by the Council's future office provision. And having considered this work, the Executive, as I'm sure you're aware, agreed that the options of a full refurbishment of the existing Shoot End offices or a relocation to 28 to 38 Peach Street, Wokingham, or a leasehold or freehold of a building are the current viable options for future headquarters provision. It was noted in the January 2025 Executive report that the next stage of work on the future headquarters will need to be informed by the receipt of further clarity on the implications and timescales of any local government reorganisation and the outcomes of work to test and ratify future workforce ways of working and attendance levels in the office. At this stage, no further substantive work is currently being undertaken whilst we wait for the outcomes of these 2 pieces of work. Future workforce considerations are aiming to conclude in the autumn with outputs that will inform our future HQ requirements, particularly in terms of the required capacity of the building. In the meantime, the officer team are working on implementing a short-term investment plan for maintenance and improvements at Shoot End to ensure the existing headquarters remains fit for purpose and safe for our workforce and our customers.
Do you have a supplementary, Peter?
Thank you, Stephen. Obviously, from what you've said, that the end point is dependent on, obviously, the central government reorganisation, local government, so we have no end date. At a previous update about the office buildings, I questioned the use of an external programme manager to run this programme because it was undefined in terms of end date. It's even more undefined in terms of end date. Can you confirm that we are no longer employing costly external programme managers to run this programme?
I'm not quite sure what you're referring to there, Peter, but I will look into that. On your first point about local government reorganisation, the picture is a bit clearer. I don't think Wokingham is, or any of the Berkshire councils, are under external pressure from the government to change their boundaries. But there is a bit of a complication. You may have heard of West Berkshire's proposal that they link up with 2 Oxfordshire districts, which would muddy the waters somewhat. So until we know the government's decision on that proposal from West Berks, we must continue to assume there is a degree of uncertainty about whether anything will happen in Berkshire as a whole. I don't believe it will. My belief is that the government is unlikely to accept a cross-county unitary council. But it remains the case that we still have to get the output of all this work on capacity of the building, our workforce patterns, whether people are going back in greater numbers to working in the office on a regular basis. We need all of that data before we can make an informed decision on the size and appropriateness of any of the options for us.
Thank you. That takes us to the end of the prescribed 30 minutes, but I intend to accept the rest of the questions to be asked as we have made up time, and I think we might make use of that. So if we carry on with the list, that would be Moses asking a question of the Exec Councillor for Community Safety and Public Protection.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I noticed you didn't take an interest to pronounce my surname.
I'm sorry, no.
If a council is claiming to be ethnically diverse, maybe you should take more interest in pronouncing an ethnically diverse surname like mine next time. My question is Executive Councillor for Community Safety and Public Protection. The failure of street lights maintained by a retailer could potentially be considered a breach of health and safety regulations, depending on the circumstances. If the street lights are on a private property, usually a retail park, store car park, or access road owned or managed by the retailer has a duty of care under the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974 to ensure the safety of employees, customers, and visitors. This is particularly pertinent if the failure of lighting creates a foreseeable risk of injury, such as trips, falls, accidents, or criminal activity due to culpable negligence. The local authority could take enforcement action if the failure is serious and persistent. In my interactions with council officers during the last few months, there appeared to be some confusion as to whether the failure of light at Asda Supermarket in Early is a breach of HSE or antisocial behavior, the latter constituting a statutory nuisance. Can the executive member for Community Safety and Public Protection confirm that this is HSE breach and the council will take enforcement action to ensure public safety if ASDA continues to delay and thither in repairing the faulty lights?
Moses, you'll probably realise that Lou is not here. Lou Timlin's not here, so I'm afraid you're going to have to put up with the B team. And I will endeavour to answer your question. And I think we can just start with some very basic factual stuff. All workplaces should have a suitable and sufficient risk assessment in relation to the foreseeable hazards associated with their business. As the store risk assessment should include customer and employee safety in the car park and potentially sufficient lighting when employees are, for instance, collecting trolleys in dark areas. This should include other foreseeable hazards associated with the car park, such as slips, trips, and falls. Such lighting should be maintained, and failure to do so could be considered a breach of workplace health and safety requirements, and related enforcement action could be taken. I'm not sure whether the Health and Safety Act 1974 itself is a statute intended to expressly prevent criminal activities such as assault or robbery. I think it much more relates to workplace health and safety requirements. The issue of a defective car parking lighting at Asda dates back, as you probably will know, to June 2024. The antisocial behaviour team have sought to persuade the management at Asda to to attend to the defective lights, principally in order to prevent antisocial behaviour and potential criminal activity. On several occasions, assurances have been given by Asda management that the lights would be attended to, but on each of those occasions over the last 12 months, it's not been possible to get that work completed by the deadlines that have been given. Now, Asda submitted a request to the head office for remedial works in relation to car park lights on the 21st of July of this year, and it's understood that head office approval for the works is still awaited. And the ASB team
Stephen,
will
could
be
you
following...
wrap up, please?
I will indeed, Madam Mayor. The ASB team will be following this up next week, and if there is no approval, we will be contacting Asda head office ourselves.
Moses, Ian Gambino, would you like to, have you got a supplementary?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I do have a supplementary. Those assurances sound very hollow because they've been made to me over many months and nothing has happened. I think I do understand that health and safety has not much to do with ASB. That's why I said there's been some confusion. Now that you are aware, can you give me a firm timeline when ASDA will be required to repair the fading lights so that residents do not continue to be exposed to health and safety risks?
I'm not sure that we can actually require them to. We can engage with them and try and persuade them to meet their responsibilities, and that's what we've been trying to do. And as I said, next week we will be following up to find out whether ASDA head office have approved this work, and if they haven't, we will be contacting them directly. I think that's all I can do in these circumstances, Moses. I'm not the executive member with responsibility for this area, but I am very confident that our ASB team will do what they can next week.
Thank you very much. If we move on to the next question, which is Joseph Barley, asking a question of the Exec Councillor for Housing.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm delighted to hear that the Sainsbury's supermarket in Arborfield will open at the end of August. This will make a significant difference to my residents after years of delay. Could you please provide me with an update on when my residents can expect work to begin on the long overdue community centre?
Thank you, Joseph. I'm glad that you're pleased that Sainsbury's will open soon. I share your delight at the arrival of this important local facility. The Council has been in active discussions with the community through the established Community Working Group and Crest Nicholson regarding the delivery of the community centre and the best value for money delivery model. And this has included discussions regarding the design of the facilities and the design and the facilities to be included within the centre and the opportunities to secure additional funding for the facility if required by the local community. And we anticipate the construction works for the new facility will start next year with the completion of the building scheduled for the early summer of 2027. Now, I have to say these matters have been discussed not just at the Community Working Group, but also at a Parish Council's briefing and a meeting of the Community Liaison Group, to all of which I think you were invited. So I'm slightly surprised that you feel the need to ask your question.
Joseph, do you have a supplementary?
I most certainly do, and point aside the fact that despite potential changes in my working arrangements has left my calendar extremely restricted as of recent. If the leader of the council is so concerned about that, perhaps we could have a conversation with that another time. But all of that aside, I do have one question related to that. Since residents learned that the council has spent the SIL money for their long-awaited Finchwood Park Sports Hub elsewhere in the borough, something that we uncovered back in January, there have been concerns that a whole host of projects in Arborfield are now in jeopardy because of the SIL funding intended for these very facilities may have been spent elsewhere. With this information in mind, in the context of our community centre, is this the reason why the council is asking the parish councils to clean up WBC's mess and provide funding to deliver the community centre?
Thank you for your supplementary, Joseph. On the SIL receipts and how they're spent. I will try and find out some details for you. I do not believe that your may have been spent somewhere else is sufficient. We really need to find out and absolutely be certain what the situation is, and I will endeavour to try and find out for you. On the point about why, as you put it, the Borough Council is turning to the parish councils for assistance with this, we are committed to, with Crest Nicholson, to providing the sum that Crest Nicholson have agreed in the developer contribution. And we have said to the local community, we can build this with this contribution. If we want to go beyond it and do something different, we are going to have to look for external contributions. And that, at the moment, is the situation. I believe that this message has been understood and appreciated by our parish council partners, some of which are looking to make a contribution.
Thank you very much. Next question then is from Dave Edmonds, a question to the Exec Councillor for Active Travel.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The new lead member for Active Travel, Transport and Highways has been heavily involved in a local group called Watch Wokingham. They describe themselves as a community group formed by volunteers to help make Wokingham a great walking and cycling borough. Their social media pages put forward the case for 20-mile-an-hour speed limits in town centres. Can the lead member detail what plans will come in now he has control of the transport agenda in terms of introducing 20-mile-an-hour speed limits or low traffic networks in Wokingham? Or can he confirm he has now come to his senses and no longer endorses these ill-conceived plans?
Dave, thank you for your characteristically somewhat offensive question. It's also good of you to publicise the work of the Watch group, which I was indeed involved with. The risk of death to a pedestrian is up to 5 times higher if struck by a vehicle at 30 mile an hour compared to 20 mile an hour. This fundamentally is why 20 mile an hour limits are increasingly being introduced in areas with high volumes of vulnerable road users. I can do little better than thank and quote your colleague Councillor Pauline Jorgensen in Wokingham Today newspaper in 2020 when she said in relation to a trial of 20 mile an hour schemes during lockdown, the 20 mile an hour speed limit on these roads around the town centre is to assist those walking and cycling around the area. It will particularly make it better for cyclists by reducing the speed of vehicles around them. Now, at last year's local elections, every party stood to make walking and cycling easier and safer in our borough, since when there have been 13 councillor questions relating to this in this council, mostly from your Conservative colleagues. Your apparent opposition in principle to something with the potential to improve road safety does puzzle me. I would be happy to discuss the detail of this at more length with you, including the evidence behind such changes, should you wish to do so. Perhaps we could go for a walk or even a cycle around one of the towns. Our local transport plan, which I assume you read before voting on it in March, says very clearly that in support of the Safer Streets action, we will implement 20 mile an hour speed limits where a need has been evidence. That's the council's policy. I happen to agree with it. As mentioned in my earlier answer, we are in the process of producing a policy document explaining the principles and processes by which speed limits will be set and reviewed, and I look forward to presenting this for scrutiny in the near future.
This seems to me further evidence of dither and delay. Can you please give us a date that this is going to come to scrutiny if you're going to put these plans forward, please?
Not yet.
Thank you very much. We'll move on then to item 3213, another question, which is Nagi Nagella, asking a question of the Exec Councillor for Environment and Climate Emergency.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. From April next year, the government's simpler recycling scheme means local authorities must collect glass from residents' doorsteps, and soft plastic recycling starts the following year. This was discussed at the July 7th Community and Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee meeting. Days later, I have seen an article in the newspaper where the executive has commented that they're waiting for 3 years funding settlement before making any decisions. For many years, Lib Dem councillors have been calling on WGBC to adopt curbside glass recycling, and they have included this demand in their literature. Both former Lib Dem leaders, Lindsay Ferries and Clive Jones, made the demand for curbside glass recycling. Were they wrong?
Thanks for your question, Nagy. I firstly want to acknowledge the fantastic efforts of our residents in achieving recycling rates already higher than the national average for glass, despite us being one of only 30 local authorities who don't currently collect it at the curbside. But as you know, we could do more to make it easier for everyone to be able to recycle as much as possible. We continue to be supportive of the introduction of curbside glass collection in Wokingham. And while any delay would be unwelcome, the Council's financial position remains challenging, with significant uncertainty as to the implications of the government's 3-year local government settlement. The Lib Dem administration is fully committed to delivering a robust, balanced budget, which, given expectations of the coming financial settlement, will require difficult decisions which may be even more acute in this coming budget cycle. I'm sure you would agree that the prospect of a far more challenging financial landscape means the only sensible thing is to review all of our options across the board and to accept that there may be things that we cannot do that we would have liked to do. And in making any decision on future curbside collection, we'll be considering the success of the current bottle bank network, the limited forecast increase in our glass tonnage that a curbside collection would bring, and the constraints of the disposal arrangements, given there's now only 6 years left of the current RE3 disposal contract. And so therefore, in parallel to developing the new service, officers will continue to liaise with the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs to explore if there are any other options regarding the implementation of the simpler recycling legislation in order to ensure best value for money for Wokingham residents.
Nagy, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, Madam Mayor, yes I do. The government has plans for packaging producers to pay a fair share for the cost of collecting and recycling packaging. Over the next year, English councils will receive a share of 1.1 billion funds to increase recycling of household waste. Wokingham itself is receiving 2.9 million. Has this been considered, or why is it not being thought of? Thank you.
Thanks for the supplementary. It is absolutely being considered, and I'm sure you'll appreciate there's a lot changing in terms of both the packaging reforms, but also the broader financial landscape that we're facing. So my understanding is that the EPR money is subject to a similar adjustments based on indicators such as deprivation, and that will affect the amount that we receive, but we have a huge amount of uncertainty as to what that settlement will look like going forward, which makes it very challenging to plan for such an investment as introducing a new collection service. The other aspects of it are so that will be considered. We are also seeking to get more clarity on exactly what the requirements are for spend of that funding, including exactly what we spend on packaging already. We believe that we need to compare what we spend on packaging, disposal and collection in the whole, not just on glass, to make sure that we are using it in the best possible way for Wokingham residents.
Thank you very much. The next question is from Marie-Louise Rahill to the Exec Councillor for Active Travel.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Earlier this month, the government announced a scheme to allow pupils to become junior active travel inspectors. We might have to work on the name, to help them cycle, walk, wheel and scoot to their schools and reduce the number of children who are driven to and from their classrooms, which will reduce, hopefully, congestion on our roads. Participating students will carry out an audit of their school runs, identify barriers to healthy journeys, and suggest ideas to encourage more active and safe travel to school. What will Wokingham Borough Council be doing to encourage and support our local schools to take part in this initiative?
Thank you, Marie-Louise, for your constructive question. The 14th on this subject this year now. Anyone using the roads at the time of the school run will appreciate the volume of traffic associated with children being driven to school. Equally importantly, making it easier and safer to walk, wheel and cycle to school has health and social benefits for children. It improves safety around schools and benefits the wider environment. Our new local transport plan has an entire section dedicated to this issue, building on our existing sustainable routes to school strategy, investment in infrastructure and examination of options for specific school street schemes. The Junior Active Travel Inspectors Initiative, to which you refer, announced on the 18th of July, is jointly sponsored by Mode Shift Stars. Mode Shift Stars is already promoted in the Council by our My Journey team, who work with all Wokingham schools. Our current programme in secondary schools includes Junior Active Travel Ambassadors who promote sustainable transport using a comprehensive resource pack we provide. We will be updating our information to schools to include this latest initiative, as well as continuing to promote other aspects of the sustainable travel offering. We have £150,000 of capital funding in the MTFP for improving routes to school. With further funding, in both resource and capital terms, we could do more and faster. Funding for active travel improvements was sadly slashed by the previous government, and the new government has yet to deliver on its promise to reverse this. The benefits of investing in active travel for all age groups are well understood, but especially for children travelling to school. And I hope we will see improved grants being made available to back up initiatives such as the one you mentioned in the future.
Do you have a supplementary?
Thank you, I do. I'm really pleased to hear that this will be folded into the range of work that is needed to promote safer and more effective school travel. But it's a concern for all of us that initiatives, these rolling initiatives can take place, can be implemented, and then the results are quite hard to see. And I'd like to speak specifically to the School Streets initiative at Radstock School, where a plan was made to implement one of these. 36,000, was spent on a consultant, and then it seems that the initiative has now been abandoned. So how can we guarantee, or what guarantees are there, that all these initiatives will not go the same way as the School Streets?
Yeah, thank you, Marie-Louise. One thing we are doing, which I know you're part of, is a task and finish group relating to active travel, and we're meeting on Monday. Be happy for you to raise that issue then. And continuity of funding and long-term availability of funding would certainly help us. We tend to go from hand to mouth year to year in terms of future funding streams, which makes it very difficult to get ahead of the problem and make long-term plans. In respect to the Radstock School Street plan, I'll confess I'm not across all the detail on that. I will get there, and I will very happily have a further conversation with you about what went wrong there and what lessons we might learn, if any, for the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We move on to another question. It's time from Greg Bellow to the Exec Councillor for Economic Development. Greg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On July the 10th, a parade of 5 shops in Woodley town centre was auctioned. Above them are 7 large maisonettes. The guide price was £4 million, while it was expected to bring in just under £400,000 a year in rental income. Therefore, after just over a decade, the scheme would have been paid off and generating revenue for the council. Given that Wokingham Borough Council has a portfolio of retail properties, including the Waitrose store in Woodley, did it bid for the properties, and if not, why?
Thank you. Thank you for your question, Greg. I can confirm the council did not bid for the properties in Woodley Town Centre being sold at auction on the 10th of July. The opportunity was considered by officers prior to the auction to inform whether a bid should be made. And from these considerations, a view was taken that the opportunity for sale did not appear to be a strong standalone investment. With existing short short-term commercial lease terms and tenant-only break clauses limiting long-term commercial income, certainty and security. Funding for such an investment, if the council had wanted to proceed with making an offer, would come from the Public Works Loan Board, and there are strict criteria surrounding the use of the Public Works Loan Board funds, which cannot be used purely for investment purposes, and would need to demonstrate such an investment would contribute to the objectives of service delivery, housing, regeneration, and preventative financial intervention, and it was not deemed that this particular investment opportunity would meet these criteria, and therefore funding would not be forthcoming.
Greg, do you have a supplementary?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Oh, seems we're all looking forward to it, but there you are. The next question then is Andrew Gray to ask a question of the Executive Councillor for Active Travel.
Thank you. In Section 106 agreements for residents in Shinfield, it's stated that if SANGs are not maintained properly, the council should take over maintenance. How often does the council check the quality of maintenance of SANGs in Shinfield, and is it satisfied they are being maintained adequately?
Right, let's just click on this. Andrew, thank you very much for your question. The answer is that Section 106 agreements within the south of the M4 SDL allow for the ongoing management of some of the SANGs by the University of Reading, which is a principle that was established at the planning appeal for the Shinfield West development. In order to ensure that the SANGs would be available to the public to use in perpetuity, even in the event that the University of Reading ceased to exist, the council secured step-in rights and a contingency sum. However, these arrangements could only realistically be exercised if the various SANG sites were closed to the public and or so poorly managed that they became unsuitable or unsafe to use. The council meets regularly with the University of Reading to discuss various matters around its provision and management of the SANG sites in Shinfield, and we are not aware of any issues that would suggest that they are failing to fulfil their established purpose. At the current time, the University of Reading is managing the various SANG sites largely in accordance with the approved management plans, and they continue to be open and available to the local community.
Andrew, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, I do, thank you. Thank you for your answer. So Wokingham maintains its own SANGs at a rate of approximately £2,500 per hectare. Do you think it's fair that SANGs maintained by the University of Reading cost residents more than 10 times that amount to maintain per hectare? The University of Reading is supposed to be our partner. What can the council do to reduce this burden and stop this so-called partner taking advantage of our residents?
Right, I have a little bit of information which might help, but I'll give you a fuller explanation. But essentially, the charges made by the University of Reading to residents is considerably higher than we charge. The cost maintenance of the SANG is a matter between the residents at the University of Reading, and the council has no power to intervene, no legal powers to intervene. But I will get back to you to see if there is anything else that we can do to assist the residents, because this is a common problem in a number of sites around the borough, not in SANG sites, but other site management.
Thank you very much. We come to the final question, which is Yusuf Salman asking a question of the Exec Councillor for Children's Services.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is to the Executive Councillor for Children's Services. The figure of children leaving the private sector in England is nearly 400% what the government had previously forecast, as a result of it imposing 20% VAT on private school fees. Transition of pupils between schools is stressful for families, and they need more support. The council has no control over government policy. However, has the council drawn up a revised projection of how many additional pupils may seek state school places in the new academic year due to this policy, and is there any indication what this will do to the waiting times?
Thank you for your question, Yusra. The Council has no reason to believe that we have insufficient places in our schools because of children moving to state education following the imposition of VAT on private school fees. The Borough's school organisation team does not expect any substantial impact on pupil place demand from the VAT changes. As a consequence, the pupil forecast model for secondary placements does not include any additional weighting for this factor. And the fact that the forecasts for the September 2025 intake are within 0.1% of actual placements bears out the fact that this expectation was in line with the situation within Wokingham, and as a consequence, no adjustments will be made to the model at this stage. However, the team is keeping this matter under review, and should any noticeable change in admissions patterns occur, this factor will be given weight in future.
Yes, so do you have a supplementary?
Yes, of course. Pupils from number of private schools are in the long waiting list of Wokingham schools, if you check properly, please. Some of the state secondary schools give places for year 7 and year 9 last year and upcoming new academic year to overcome the demand, resulting the impact of 20% VAT. Unfortunately, situation is still challenging in the borough for the transition of affected private school pupils and families, being left with the option of stay at home until they find the school place. How many pupils are currently on the waiting list of already oversubscribed secondary school, please?
I'm not sure quite what you're referring to. Every child that needed a place was allocated a place. There may be children on waiting lists because they would prefer a different school to the one they were allocated, but we don't have a shortage of secondary school places across the borough. I'm very happy to pick this up with you afterwards and we can go through the figures.
Thank you very much. We move on then to item 33. We do finish at 10:30 and that is a firm cut-off time, so just to give you fair warning. So if you'd like, show of hands of anybody who'd like to put forward questions, please. And if you'd like to give us time to write down who they are. Right, okay, you can put your hands down, thank you. I've got 5 people, Stephen Newton, Rebecca Margetts, Charles Margetts, Nagy and Vishal. So nobody, oh, and you, okay, thank you. I saw your hand go up, then it went down again, so. Okay. I missed that, maybe that was a good job. Right, okay, Stephen Newton, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The orchard at Bourmersh Fields was recently destroyed by a fire, and my thanks to Berkshire Fire and Rescue for containing the fire as much as they did, but even so the orchard and some of the surrounding area has been destroyed. Resident volunteers are happy to help with replanting, etc., but may ask the Executive Member for Environment and Climate Emergency if it would be possible to ask Freely Fruity if they could please provide replacement trees. Freely Fruity very kindly donated the original fruit trees. We would also benefit from having a WBC warden to help direct the volunteers so that we plant them correctly and give the trees the best chance of surviving and re-establishing the orchard, which will hopefully provide fruit to the community for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for your question, Stephen. Sorry to hear about the fire. It's a great shame. I believe officers are already working or planning to speak with Freely Fruity to see if there's replacement trees available, or if not, to look for other options. I'm very happy to speak to the Countryside Service to see if a warden can be available to support the replanting when trees are sourced.
Thank you very much. Rebecca, you're next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is for Catherine as well. A resident of Finchampstead has contacted me about the installation of their solar panels through the Solar Together scheme recommended by Woking Borough Council. Their installer, Fusion 8, was endorsed by Solar Together and the council's promotional materials on the council website. However, since the installation, Fusion 8 has gone into liquidation and no longer provides an insurance-backed guarantee, and as a result, my resident is left without the promised protection, despite having used the scheme recommended by the council. What steps is the council taking to support residents who have used Fusion 8 and now lack a guarantee for their solar panel installations?
Thanks for your question, Rebecca. And this is something that was brought to my attention shortly before the most recent window was opened. So it's something we put that window on hold to get more clarity from iChooser, who run the Solar Together scheme. So in regards to the Fusion 8 issue, as I understand it, Solar Together are providing support to residents. There are particular legal features of the insurance-backed guarantee that mean they can't replicate it exactly, but officers are now meeting with iChooser every month and receiving updates on this. So if any residents are struggling with that, please do let me know, and I'll work with the team to make sure that it's being picked up with iChooser. We were also, unfortunately, we can't protect residents entirely from companies going under. However, I was reassured by the information provided on the due diligence that is carried out, and also regarding the customers, for instance, who had deposits with Fusion 8 using the Solar Together and iChooser scheme. I understand that they have all been refunded, and that has provided an extra layer of protection. So I recommend anyone considering the scheme, looks at the options and potential alternatives, but as it is a scheme the council has been promoting, I am reassured that around the extra protections that iChooser are putting in place to protect residents.
Thank you very much. Another question is from Charles Marget.
Thank you. Sorry, question for Katrine again. The playground at Finch Hampstead Baptist Centre is very near the end of its life. I'm told this issue was first brought to WBC attention 3 years ago. A consultation took place at the time and a scheme was developed with a cost of £450,000 to replace the entire playground. We're now in a position where officers advised the current playground has weeks months of life left. At a meeting I held with officers to look into this, they first told me there was no budget to replace it. When I asked how this could potentially be funded, the first suggestion was a national lottery bid. Following a further discussion, they agreed to put in a capital bid for 50% of the money into the next MTFP. Finch Hampstead Parish Council have agreed to fund the other 50% of the cost if WBC will fund their 50%. Can you confirm to me that WBC can provide funding and that you will support and lobby for this important community facility to be replaced?
You're all checking that I'm really here. Thanks for your question, Charles. Firstly, I'd like to, these play areas are very important, and we absolutely want to work with all of the town and parish councils to make sure that facilities are available for residents and young people to spend time outside. Regarding the capital bid, this will have to follow the usual programme of works, which will be coming through scrutiny through October, and I look forward to all of our members and colleagues' comments on that. I'm very happy to support this for consideration, but it will have to be considered in the round as we face a very challenging budget process.
Thank you, Catherine. Nagy, you have a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is to Executive Member for Active Travel, Transport and Highways. I'll start off with a good story. So in my ward, Norris, there is a crossing work that's happening on a very busy road currently as we speak. And residents are very excited and thankful to all the work that's gone in. Thank you for that. But on the very same road, not within less than 150 meters, there's another estate, Astridge Grange, which houses about 160 homes and about 350 to 400 residents who have to cross the very same road, just 100 to 150 meters away. When the zebra crossing has been designed, are there any considerations that went into it? Because currently the only thing that is lacking between both the estates is a footpath. So, and the residents from Astridge Grange end up crossing the very same road, which is dangerous. So, so is there any consideration into such kind of designs or futuristic designs being thought about. Thank you.
Thank you, Nagy, and I'm pleased the residents are looking forward to the new crossing. I can't confess to have fully understood the detail of the question there. Happily talk to you afterwards, or if you'd like to drop me an email with a bit more detail, I can meet you on site, or we can talk about how best to get that in. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Look at my watch, we don't have time to take the next question. So I would like to thank you for your attendance.